Welcome back. And on Samson's Take, I'm talking about the transparency trap. And I want us to look beyond the arrest and the seizures that have been happening as far as the fight against illegal mining is concerned. And this week, the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, NIMOS, held what it says is its quarterly editors forum. So we saw the charts, we heard the numbers, we heard the many hundreds who have been arrested, we heard the thousands of excavators that have been commissioned, we heard about the global strike rates that they have achieved. On the face of it, one must commend the transparency. In a country where state operations often disappear into a black hole of classified information, this level of briefing is welcome, is a welcome departure. But as we sit here today, we must ask ourselves a fundamental and uncomfortable question. Are we winning the war? Or are we just getting better at documenting the skirmishes? There's a certain deception with the data. Because you see, we have been here before. We have had the Operation Vanguard, the Galam Stop, and what have you. We have had Operation Halt 1 and 2. Each came with its own set of impressive facts and figures. Arrests, seizures of excavators, some of which got missing, and they hardly seized gold. Have you realized that? They hardly seized gold. But is it really the case that they never chanced upon gold? Ask yourself that question. We see the bent machinery, the display on the water bodies, and yet here we are in 2026, still talking about this existential threat to our water bodies, to our lives. But the data often hides a darker irony. Look back at the Akufo-Addo administration in what was perhaps the boldest and most potent decision ever taken against the menace. There was a total ban on artisanal mining that was imposed for nearly 2 years. The logic would suggest that gold exports from that sector would have flatlined. Instead, the opposite happened. During that period of total ban, the export of artisanal gold from Ghana actually increased exponentially. You remember that? How does a sector under a total ban produce record-breaking exports? The answer is not difficult to fetch. It tells you that the fight on the surface, the burning of champagnes and the chasing of poor laborers, has been a mere smokescreen, while the small fish were being arrested or are being arrested for the cameras, the big fish were and have simply been formalizing their illegality or using the ban or whatever measures we put in place to consolidate their hold on the concessions, the illegal concessions. So, Mr. President, we don't want you to tell us what we already know. President John Mahama, what we want is that beyond informing us that even people within your own party, the NDC, are involved in Galamsey, tell us who they are exactly. Because telling us that some of your members are involved in Galamsey is no news. That NDC functionaries, MPP bigwigs, powerful chiefs, and influential persons are the ones bankrolling this destruction is a fact as old as the hills of Obuasi. Even the Asantehene Otumfuo 82 stood before his own chiefs and told them to their faces that they could not claim that they were unaware of the damage being done. When you campaigned in 2024 and spoke about targeting the kingpins, you were not guessing. You knew exactly who you were dealing with. In your previous presidency, official reports and petitions were moved to your desk. I am aware of some of these. Kokubako has, sat on this platform and spoken about some of these. Investigations done by ANAS and culminated in a situation where NDC bigwigs were the ones that were seizing forest and mining without any sense of responsibility to the environment. They brought those before you, your desk, and you did nothing, practically nothing about them. So today, we don't want you to tell us those stories because you are not getting to know about them today. You have always known. When you say your party people are involved, Mr. President, tell us their names. We know that you are committed to this. If you are committed to it, the patriots and the lives of patriots like Major Maxwell Mahama must not be in vain. Erecting a statue for him should not be enough. Ghanaians are not looking for more PowerPoint presentations from NIMOS. We are not looking for what the seizures are, even though they are good. We are looking for clear, unpolluted rivers. We are looking for the Birim, the Pra, and the Ankobra to run clean. If the turbidity levels are still high, if the kingpins are still hosting party fundraisers, and if the gold is still leaving our shores in suitcases while our forests turn into lunar landscapes, then the facts and figures from this particular, press conference by NIMOS or forum by NIMOS are nothing more than an expensive obituary for our environment. Mr. President, the time for transparency through briefings is over. The time for transparency through prosecutions is what we demand. Don't just tell us they are involved. Show us what you will do to them. Name them. And that's my take. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, what we do is to put Ghana first. And today we're going to be asking the very important questions and checking out if contracts are being handed to cronies in this government under the guise of sole source. The sole source that there were several promises and reinforced by the president even after he won power that they were going to ban. I've never understood that thing, ban sole source, and that they will make it the rare exception. What does the law say? It's supposed to be the rare exception. So what is this talk about? All right. So my guest in the studio, Suleiman Abrahima, is Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. They have the investigative journalism arm, the Fourth Estate, which has been doing a great job with data. They're the ones who have found out, and through RTI, factual RTI, that out of 107 contracts for the road sector worth over 73 billion Ghana cedis, 81 of those were sole source. That is directly handed to certain contractors without any competition. The suspicion is, why do so instead of competitive tendering? We'll get the justifications for that. Kofi Bento, lawyer and senior vice president, Imani Africa, and as usual, rebel, posture, ready. They began the discussion and the debate even before we came on air. Kwabna Atabadu is management consultant and procurement specialist. He's the best you can have on this subject. So stick and stay and get educated. Nanaje Bafwewa, the man who is behind the Soloku, you call it Soloku what?
Soloku Festival.
Soloku Festival in Abuabo.
In Menchia.
In Menchia, right.
So you are from Oforikrom.
Yes, I'm a Oforikrom guy.
And so I'm inviting you. See, you know what my constituency is made of. A lot of tourism, things that can attract tourists.
Right.
You know it.
Right.
And so all that I'm doing is to rejuvenate it. I may not be in government, but the little ideas that you can implement to drive traffic into the constituency, to boost our economy, the economy, is what we are doing.
Great.
Next year, we are adding to it trade fair during the Ghana month. Next year, during the Ghana month.
And you're doing this within a little after the Ghana month, but still very relevant.
Yes.
Right.
And then next year, we are also doing the cultural exhibition. If you want to learn how to dance kete, Adwa, Fonton from, you come to Menchia.
Where else? Yeah.
If you want to learn how to wear traditional cloth, if you want to learn how to cook certain meals, you come to Menchia South. And I'm hoping to connect with the Otumfuo's Museum so that buses will be available. And then when you go to Otumfuo's Museum, you'll be driven through the principal streets of Ashtown and shown the houses of various chiefs, right? And the story behind them, the political figures from the constituency, and the story behind them.
And the houses of the most influential, who were influential by process of cocoa.
By process of cocoa.
Yeah, they are all over that place.
Exactly. Exactly. And then very influential political figures.
Right.
Amadou Baba in Alaba, Victor Usu,
right.
Krobadu says African Bungalow.
Okay.
And so lots and lots of.
Right, we'll get to talk a little more about this.
They are all gathering at Dichemso, where I was born and bred.
Right.
And we do a health walk.
Okay.
And the health walk will be interspersed with brass band music. That is why it's called Soloku.
I know Dichemso like the back of my hand.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
This one is good for the
Nana J. Bafwewa is Vice Chair, Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament and Member Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament. Will be joined by Dr. Joseph Boni, Emergency Medicine Specialist over the no-bed syndrome, the killer no-bed syndrome, which right here in Accra, in the Premier Hospital, the hospital that is rated third best or so in Africa or West Africa, where people are being treated who need emergency care, are being treated on the bare floor and sitting in chairs. There was an attempt to deny that viral video, but now it's been confirmed that that is actually what is going on. Nana Kofi Kwache, Country Director, Orum Institute Ghana, will also join us. So thank you also very much for making time to join us. I am in a hurry. After this show, I have to go to Agbogloshi and join an environmental walk on e-waste, how to manage our waste. The slightest rain and this town is flooded because of waste. And the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese of Accra, is doing a sensitization on that and getting the waste to be turned into precious stuff under the auspices of the Archbishop of the Accra Archdiocese, Archbishop Bonaventure Kofi. So you don't have to be a Catholic to be at Agbogloshi to march to the cathedral for that important occasion with our friends from Germany, Monsieur, who are joining us this morning. So let's get straight to these matters that concern us this morning. First, let's go to the Fourth Estate. After they used RTI to make a finding, they had this verdict. Let's watch and listen to the Fourth Estate carefully, and then after, let's listen to the Minister, Governs Abuja for Roads.
87%. That is 175 contracts out of 266 did not go through any competitive, transparent process. Then it means that these guys have shortchanged us. They lied their way into power.
A year promise in a manifesto, the Reset Ghana manifesto. Yaba amended the Public Procurement Act. Sa single source yebe chaso. because it's been abused.
The Speaker will minimize sole source procurement to encourage competition, competitive bidding, and enhance public transparency in the procurement processes. Single source procurement must be the rare exception rather than the norm. We must also subject government projects above a certain threshold to value for money audits.
The era of the sole source contract is dead. The value for money office bill is our sword against waste.
Okay. Now, in addition to this, we're looking at this, and also there's a value for money, a certain value for money office that has been set up by a legislation. Value for money office. If you have not been paying attention, it is not the only, body, additional body that has been set up under this regime just now. There's also the Governance Advisory Council, which is supposed to be an independent body, pledged to President John Mahama to bolster, pledged by John Mahama to bolster accountability, combat corruption, and protect human rights. That has been set up. Questions are being asked. Why are you setting all these things up when there appears obviously to be institutions that can do all of this already? Let's find out if the concerns are justified. Let's begin with your preliminary comments before we get into the meat. Suleimana, what did you set out to achieve with what you did?
Well, thank you very much, Samson. The videos you just played were clear and audible. Many of these were said when the NDC was in opposition. And of course, we heard about the reset agenda, which meant that things were going to be done differently. Then over time, the president talked about the big push, which indeed is a major push, because if you look at the monies that have been allocated, so significant. In fact, last year in July,
we're committing $10 billion.
Yes, that's $10 billion, more than 3 times what we got from the IMF with all the conditionalities. And remember that anytime we were able to fulfill conditions for a certain tranche of the IMF money, it was cause for celebration. Now we've qualified for the next tranche.
And they'll give us 6 million.
Exactly.
Sometimes about 3 million.
Exactly. And then we celebrate. That
an independent country.
We qualified to get the next tranche and so on. And then over time, we started hearing that, well, these people promised that sole sourcing was going to be a thing of the past because it leads to inflation of costs, it leads to abuse of resources. And the minister there now, Kwame Abuja, had said the reasons why we are unable to build our roads is because of sole sourcing, because sole sourcing tends to inflate the cost of our contracts. So hearing that the same things are happening, we were quite curious. And as journalists, essentially our weapon in seeking information directly is through the RTI law. So we did a request. Initially, they refused to release the information. Per the law, we had to do an appeal. We did the appeal. Then we got a response saying that, well, they apologize for the delay in getting us the information.
So please hold on there. If you hear the narrative by the government spokespersons, that suggests that this is information that was handed to the Fourth Estate, and that, it's not really anything. It was not being hidden. It was handed to them, as if it was handed to them on a silver platter. They made the application, the request for the information, and the ministry refused to give the information. It took an appeal before it was given. Please go on.
Yes. So following the appeal, we got a letter from the chief director at the ministry apologizing for the delay and that they are putting together the materials. And I think it is important for me to say that we had requested for specific information in relation to Big Push. And we indicated that we needed information on how many contracts have been signed, the data on what the specific names of the projects. So if it is Achimota to Malam Road, we need the project mentioned. who the contractors are, when the contracts were awarded, as in dates, the type of procurement that was used, date of completion, and the contract sum. Now, when the initial request was refused, and refusal here means we were not granted it, we then decided to write individually to the agencies. So here we are talking about Ghana Highway Authority, urban roads, and feeder roads. To say, okay, if the ministry is not giving us, let's try the individual agencies and see if they will give. Subsequently, the Ghana Highway Authority released a data to us, with a true official communication, and this is their letter, indicating that per the request we made, they are releasing information under the big push to us. Then, following that, the ministry calls us to say that your documents are ready, so come and pick them, hard copy. So colleagues go and pick it. So what the ministry did was basically a compilation of the agencies. So Ghana Highway Authority gave us a list of what they had done under the Ghana Highway Authority. Then the ministry gave us what the Highway Authority gave us, plus contracts under feeder roads and contracts under urban roads. Altogether, what the ministry gave us was 115 contracts. Now, out of the 115, they specifically separated 8 of them as ongoing projects. So today when you hear that, oh, there were ongoing projects that we innovated and so on and so forth, in the data they gave us, they specifically separated 8 of the projects as ongoing projects, leaving a total of 107. Now, in the first place, we had requested because we wanted to know what is the type of procurement that is being used. And they provided all that, name of project, contractor, date of award, type of procurement process that was used, the contract sum, completion date, and so on. So we looked at, their own data, and a copy is here, the 107 contracts, and this document they gave us is titled Big Push Master Project Register. This is from the ministry, Big Push Master Project Register. 115, 8 of them ongoing, and our request was specific. We want what you have signed. So we decided to put aside the 8 that they themselves said were ongoing and focused on the 107. And the 107, we just basically looked at the procurement methods that they said they had used. They themselves said they had used. Right. And 81 of them indicated sole source. In fact, people say, oh, the law says single source, but they themselves even put their sole source. Then 26 were restricted tendering. So it is not our creation. And all these 107 contracts, if you look at the award dates, it starts from August to February 2026, August 2025 to February 2026. So these contracts were awarded in 2025 and 2026, 107 of them. Right. And a total of 81 are sole sourced. The 81, if you do the percentage, it comes to about 76%. And then if you look at the total figure, it's over 73 billion. So we basically put out what they themselves have given us as contracts that they have signed under the Big Push agenda, drawn from their master register.
And out of the 107, or the 115 total that you were giving, how many were subjected to competitive tendering?
None.
None.
None. Not even one.
That is the major promise in opposition and even in government.
Yes.
And out of 107, none was subjected to competitive tendering.
Absolutely none.
What is the purpose of your, project on this sole source issues?
So it's essentially about accountability. We are told, in fact, Sami Demfi in 2024 said categorically that one angle that the MPP is using to steal from the country today is what is called sole sourcing. Then he goes on to explain what sole sourcing is. We believed him then. And so we believe that what is happening now cannot be right. And so it's just about public accountability letting the public know what is happening. If sole sourcing leads to inflated contracts, and in fact, if time allows on this program, I will take our viewers and listeners through some of the contract sums that are so outrageous. You know, but Samson, let me do this. You know, when we published this and they were rushing to counter our publication and all of that, one of the things they did, you know, the minister rushed to Parliament to make a statement to Parliament, a very long statement which I found quite hollow. Then subsequent to that, they published what they said are the facts on their websites to try and sort of create a semblance of transparency and whatever. And I believe, you know, sometimes when you are rushing to do things, to justify things that cannot be justified, your own data will end up exposing you.
Tell us about that.
So they published, they said, the minister was on PM Express and said there are two categories of big push. He calls one old big push and another one new big push. And that old big push means projects that they inherited that they brought under the big push. And new big push means what they have done. So they published 54 projects, which they claim is supposed to be the new big push, and 23 projects that they say they inherited. Now, let me start with the 23, which they said they inherited. If you look at the data they themselves put out, of the 23 projects they say they inherited, and if you inherited, you look at the contracts and you see 2022, 2023, 2024, and so on. The very first project on their list of projects they inherited, award date is 12 October 2025. And what is even funny about it is that if you check 12 October 2025, it's a Sunday.
Child.
You know? And this is a document.
There's no crime to work on Sunday.
Well,
it actually shows that you're taking governance.
There are some official
working hours legally.
Yes,
you can't do contracts outside official.
Even in the court,
hours.
the Supreme Court has ruled that we should come to court Saturdays and Sundays and holidays when the liberty of an individual is involved. So please.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with liberty.
We want to work 24/7. Remember.
Maybe they are doing 24 economy. Okay. Maybe.
So you look at this document, which is supposed to be a document revealing projects that they inherited. Now, as I said, the first item indicates that the project was awarded on 12 October 2025. That is not the only one. You go in and you would see several of them awarded in 2025. How do you publish a document saying that this is a list of inherited projects,
okay,
and your date of award 2025?
This is supposed to be your preliminary comment. I'll come back.
Yes. Okay.
I'll come back to you. But in that regard, I suspect the explanation may be, I don't know what it is, may be that I hear the minister speak about they novated some of the contracts they inherited. So he's using the novation date. Novation means you have renegotiated a contract, you have changed some of the terms. So maybe they are using the current date of the novation of the contract.
No, Samson, if it were so, because they say they novated the projects that they inherited and brought them under big push. But if it were so, then all these 23, the date of award must be the same.
The date of novation.
The date of novation, 2025. But see, item 2 is 25th October 2022, award date. The next one is 2022, award date.
Oh, okay.
The next speaks to award, not novation.
Okay.
It's not novation.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
The novation did override award.
Award.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Kofi, what will be your preliminary comment? And do you find the Fourth Estate's work worthy? Because I would think that our major focus should be whether the contracts will got value for money.
Salamen shows. You know what that means? Okay, it's French for saying the more things change, the more they remain the same. And I say this very sadly. Sadly because I don't know when we will get a government that really focuses on delivering for the people of Ghana. And I personally believe that if a government focuses on delivering for the people of Ghana, they will still take care of themselves. But you have a situation where it's always excuse, and the energy is in schemes to loot.
A government has dedicated over 100 billion Ghana cedis to build your roads and other infrastructure. What commitments do you...
If this government is even able, this 100 billion, to spend up to 60 billion, if they do the Kumasi road, they finish half of the big push, they will win another election. But I can tell you here, by the time we finish, we'll come back and we'll be talking about corruption. All right? And this is what Fourth Exchange is showing us. Look, when you track the dates, these were happening within the first month of the government taking office. You realize that? They are just about past a year. These cookings were happening within the first month of taking office.
You mean the first year?
You see, when they took office, before 12 months, within the first month, within the first 6 months, things were being cooked. And you had series of soul sourcing all going on. And you know, you see a certain energy. And the energy is towards what is happening. Look, God bless Suleimana and institutions like Fourth Estate. Without Fourth Estate, so much will go wrong. Now, some of these things belongs in Parliament, which is why I am very, very happy that we are going to strike parliamentarians from getting into the executive, because it's a round robin. They go from here, they do it, they go over there, they go and catch it over there. So my point is, for me, it saddens me. I'm like, when will this end? Okay? And by the way, we'll go through this more, but I think we have gotten to the point where we have to get a consensus as a nation that soul sourcing must be abolished entirely.
Oh.
Yes. Because it has been abused. The whole purpose of soul sourcing has been observed in default. We have just used it as a loophole, okay, for creating avenues for looting the state. And there's a purpose for soul sourcing. But sometimes, I was going to quote Kofi Kenyatta, you are trying to, achieve something, but then you create a situation where bandits just loot you. Now, essentially, soul sourcing is a time-saving device.
Correct.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It is to say, instead of going through everything, let's just keep it and let's just save some time and effort. Now, if just because we want to save time, we end up creating a weapon for mass destruction, and it is used to loot us bipartisan across parties, millions of dollars, then it is time we say, look, let us go through the process. Because I have said and I repeat, if we don't even have soul sourcing, but the product or service we are looking for has only a sole source, that will emerge in the tendering process. Today, people are using AI to crunch data and do analysis and give you insights, including deciding where to bomb. Okay? If it is time we don't want to waste, we can employ all kinds of things to make sure that we get the best value for money. And it is not also about starting new offices for value for money, putting the same human beings there who just go and do rubber stamping like the PP and Co have been doing. So look, my initial instinct is what at all do we need to do as a country? And when will these predatory leaders, and it's bipartisan. And I tell my friends all the time, when you get there,
in your use of words and expressions, that in the end, even if they spend 60%, we'll come to talk about corruption.
Yes.
You talk about round robin. You just come here and say this is predatory.
Yes, because that's what's happening. And Samson, how many times haven't we gone around and come back to the same point? And when these things happen, we just end up passing a new law, set up a commission, and create a new body. And we have series of them. Now there are so many layers, and it continues.
As far as you are concerned, Justice Doche, Maolom Doche, was absolutely right when, in the Wyoming line of cases, he said it is as if a brigade had been set up to create loot, and share.
Yes.
This is like fundamental what has been going on.
Yes. He was very prophetic.
Yes. And you see, when he said it, it was big news. You know what? Since he said it, it has become very obvious that some people's whole purpose in government is this.
Yeah.
Seriously. Some people's whole purpose in government is to go in there, look for loopholes, annex themselves to our tax funds, create loot, and share with their friends. And in the specific case of Wyoming, which was 51 million cedis, okay, subsequent to that, bipartisan, we have seen multiples of that in the same create, loot, and share by the same political class. And we have increased the number of institutions supposed to catch some of these things. So, me right now, I'm like, look, really, what do we do? And I think, I mean, much as yes, we should hold our politicians, even blame them. I mean, do what we need to do. We have to do some soul searching because they come from amongst us.
Right.
They come from amongst us.
I'll return to you. And again, you know, Komna, I would like you to spend time to explain a few things to us. The sole source, single source. People like Professor Jampo want us to make the distinction nicely, even though from president after president, they all keep saying sole source, sole source. And what Mahama has said, what the NDC has said, the MPP didn't say it differently. But now we're being told by Governor Saboja that the ministry that he has come to meet since 2017 to 2024, almost all contracts were sole sourced. And yet they preached against sole source. Let me take Nana's, you know, preliminary comments. The conditions for sole source, according to the law that we have passed, that Kufuor led us to pass, that we're all excited about, that it will, you know, help us to fight against corruption, that only one supplier may be available for a particular product because of technical reasons, including patent, copyright, or exclusive rights. So we do a sole source for that. That in emergency situations, there are times when the urgent needs arising from natural disaster, accidents, or unforeseen, you know, certain circumstances, competitive tendering would cause unacceptable delays. So we resort to sole source. Compatibility requirement. When you are doing an additional, you know, supplies, and it must be compatible with existing equipment and technologies or service, so on, then you use sole source. When there's national security or public interest issues, you know, procurement that relates to national defense, security, overriding public interest, and so on. These are so clear. And it looks like it is so obvious that they must not be in the preponderance, you know, scheme. So why? Why can't we overcome it?
It's the same question that has been on my mind the whole of this week. That what is in sole sourcing that we cannot make it the exception, but elevate it to the norm? I've been really pondering about it. But in pondering over it, I got very curious that, look, in the year, at least for the last 4 electoral cycles, one of the biggest issues on the front burner was the issue of public procurement and its impact on the economy. The fact that it has been a recipe for corruption. It has been big. Between 2014, 2015, it was big on the front burner. If you recall, in fact, the predecessor to YEA, it was so big to the predecessor to YEA that when Honorable Haruna Idrusu took over as the Minister for Labor, he said that, look, let's pass a regulation, let's pass a law to regulate YEA so that some of the corrupt practices that have taken place there will become a thing of the past. And so it has always been on the front burner. In fact, in the year 2016 alone, the then President Mahama government, the NDC government, which was led by President Mahama, did over 90% of the contracts by sole sourcing. In 2016 alone, it did over 90% of the contracts by sole sourcing. Accordingly, when the president had to lose elections based on trumpeted accusations of corruption through sole sourcing, and he had come back on a campaign of reset, most of us would think that, look, he has had a road to Damascus moment, especially since he was also campaigning based on sole sourcing. Most of us thought that, look, having sat back, right, and remembered, having sat back and reflected that this is one of the reasons why I lost elections. I admit it was wrong. I admit it was inappropriate. I admit it was a major source of perception by the public of corruption. Therefore, I am coming to reset the system, to the extent that even in the NDC's manifesto, right, in the NDC's manifesto, in the NDC's manifesto, they promised to ban or abolish sole sourcing. They promised in their manifesto to abolish sole sourcing, right? To the extent that in the president's inaugural State of the Nation's address, he repeated his commitment to abolish sole sourcing. That, for me, was the clearest indication of his commitment towards a reformed public procurement. In fact, the president was not alone in this. This morning, we've shown a plethora of commitments which were previously made by very senior figures in this government. Indeed, there was a press conference by the road minister, at which press conference the allegations of sole sourcing being the order of the day and the fact that it was a major source of corruption was made by the current road minister. In fact, at that press conference, he was supported by his deputy. And so when you have had a president, his road minister, his deputy road minister, right, given an abundant commitment to the public that this thing is wrong. Look, they were not making the commitment, right, merely because they were in opposition. Because you see, don't forget, they had been in government before.
That's right.
And this was what was used against them. And in fact, the records will show that when immediately they went into opposition, in the year 2017, they had made allegations of corruption through sole sourcing against the MPP, for which the Honorable Deputy Minister of Finance at the time, Honorable Kweku Kwarteng, had to come to Parliament and answer. And you see, very fashionable or characteristic of us, that, you know, trying to do equalization, that, look, we are doing sole sourcing, but ours is better than yours. You see, because Honorable Kweku Kwarteng said at the time that in the year 2017, the MPP had only done 56%, whereas the NDC had done over 90% of sole sourcing. And so, in my view, when you put all these facts together, and that serves as a foundation, and somebody tells you that I am coming to do a reset, you have no cause, you have no reason not to trust the person. Now the person comes to Parliament and tells you that I am taking steps to abolish sole sourcing. Right? But Samson, you know something which is very curious? There is an observed trend, not just of contradiction, right? Of promises made in government, promises made in opposition, and actions in government. There is even an inherent contradiction in the current government in terms of what they say and what they do whilst they are even in government. That is where it is even worrisome. Look, when you say you are passing a law, Office of Value for Money Office, it is to raise the threshold, a certain layer of transparency and accountability in public procurement, right? And so one would think that whilst doing this, you are also going to
walk the talk.
You are going to walk the talk of the promises you made in opposition, okay? Then there's also the commitment authorization law, right? So it tells you that, look, they want more meat in the soup, so that the soup will taste better. So it's not just the Public Procurement Authority Act, it is also the value for money law, and then commitment authorization law. Then on the back of all this, you are still doing sole sourcing. So there is an inherent contradiction in
before the passage of all these, or some of them already existing. Look, the president appears before Parliament and tells you and the whole nation and the world that you are going to pass a law to ban, he used the word ban, sole sourcing. And then subsequently said sole sourcing will only be in rare, exceptional situations, rare.
So that is where the inherent contradiction even in government is. So there's contradiction in what they said in opposition and what they are doing in government. And then even in government, there is inherent contradiction in their actions and what they are doing and, and what they say. Look, again, another contradiction. Immediately after the inaugural address by the president, and in fact, the budget, the finance minister brings a bill to Parliament to amend the Public Procurement Act. And that did not take care of all the things the president had committed to. Do you know why he didn't do that? Look, for me, it raises a lot of questions. One of them, is it that they really meant what they were saying? Is it a question of not being prepared for government? Because it looks like they were not even familiar with the Public Procurement Act. Because if you were familiar with it, you will know that sole sourcing is an exception.
Assuming it's a mistake.
Rather than the norm.
Maybe it's a plan.
Let me read something Mr. Osafo-Maafo said in the year 2003 when he presented the Public Procurement Bill, the second reading. There's something that he said that is instructive, which will guide us in our discussion. And it's because, look, we are losing a lot of resources through procurement. And I'll wrap my initial comment.
You do that quickly, so I go to Kopnabedu.
Now, this is what he said. Mr. Speaker, developing countries have a problem. The problem is that depending on the level of your development, as much as 45 to 70% of your resources are utilized for procurement of works, services, and equipment. This procurement takes place at all levels, at the district, at the regional, and at the national level. To carry out this exercise in an uncoordinated, unharmonized, and unregulated manner will result in misuse of resources. This was the reason why the Public Procurement Act was brought. And it brought different layers of methods for procurement and said that one of them is an exception, but now it's been elevated to the norm. We should all be asking ourselves, what is in sole sourcing or single sourcing that is so attractive? The NDC gave us the answer in opposition.
Thank you very much.
The conclusion question is that, are they doing single sourcing for the very reasons or the very things they complained of?
Exactly. Right. Thank you very much. And you know, the latest amendment to the Procurement Act, as the MP just referred to, which came into force just in February, that amendment requires that all government-funded procurement must have written authorizations from the Minister for Finance before they can proceed. So this is yet another layer to check the spending. As this change, as we understood, was aimed at strengthening fiscal discipline and preventing contracts from being awarded without proper budget backing. Now I'm coming to you. You are the procurement man here on this table. From the 107 contracts, as we understand, those that have been committed to sole source, 81 of them we are told they are worth 73 billion Ghana cedis. The total commitment for the big push is 10 billion US dollars. That's about 110 billion Ghana cedis. So what we are talking about now is that we have only about 30 something of that money left uncommitted. Tell us what you see.
But there's restrictive tendering part.
Yeah.
If you add all, it's about 80 something billion gone.
About 87
if you
billion
add the
gone.
restrictive tendering.
Yes, if you add the restrictive tendering. Because the 73 is only the ones that are sole sourced.
Okay. So less than 30 billion left to be spent.
Yes.
Out of the big push, 110 billion Ghana cedis.
Okay. Now, before I start, I would, for the benefit of the education of the public, I would rather that the legislator here explains to us the processes through which an act undergoes an amendment and what the name of the amended act is. If you can educate us.
It's the same process for lawmaking. So the bill comes to Parliament, read for the first time, referred to the committee, relevant committee. The relevant committee goes to deliberate on it, brings a report to the floor of Parliament. Then there's a second reading, and then post the second reading. You do the clause by clause review, and then the third reading, and it's passed.
Okay.
And the amendment would carry the same name.
Right.
So it's like Public Procurement Act as amended by, or Public Procurement Act amendment, Public Procurement Amendment Act.
That is what I'm coming to. And that is why I took us down that route. When we amended Act 663 the first time, the amendment was called the Public Procurement Act, into brackets, Amendment, Act 914. So it took its own identity. Now, what was amended this year? What is its identity?
It's an amendment.
So the act, what?
You can amend as many times as possible.
But each time you amend it, you see, if you don't give it that identity, like 914, anytime I talk about it,
okay,
I'm referring to that one.
So let's not focus
How
on
do we
that.
recognize that one? You see, because if you mentioned the fact that this year we've had this commitment authorization law.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, that law sits under Ministry of Finance. The Public Financial Management Act sits under Ministry of Finance. In the Public Financial Management Act, there is a provision for warrant authorization, which is the same as this one. So is it that they really know?
All under Ministry of Finance.
All under Ministry of Finance.
And others.
So
Number two.
This recent amendment,
So it's Act which came 139. The
Is
recent
the amendment.
Yes, it's Act 1.
so this amendment, which came into effect in February, what you are saying is that it's needless
Yes.
because we have a provision
In the Public Financial Management
which
Act,
takes care of
which
this.
takes care of warrant authorization.
Under one person.
So you can't spend money without warrant authorization. So what he was talking about, sometimes I go to my academic side. It's called policy incongruence. Where you are doing something, but what you are saying is the contrary of what you are doing. And it's a consistent behavior in our body politic.
True.
All the government, the two parties have been doing it. And what it does is it creates a dissonance in our minds because we don't know what to believe and we are confused as a people. Let me respond to Kofi Bentil as well. Kofi, I agree with you. And it pains me as a professional that I have to agree that we may have to cancel single sourcing from our law.
How was it paying you?
No, the reason being that as a professional, I need it because I have genuine instances where
because
it is a method.
That, you know, it is almost impossible.
Not to save time.
It is almost impossible to argue that you cancel.
It is not in.
If something gives itself overwhelmingly to abuse, What you do is put it aside. It's a basic.
But you know that. But you know that. Let me chip this.
Yes.
You know
Basic
that if you say we should abolish sole sourcing, then we may as well also abolish the Public Procurement Authority, because when you look at the law, there's a procedure for sole sourcing, and the ultimate approver is the Public Procurement Authority.
Hold on, this is.
Wait, I'm coming. I'm coming. If you say that if there is sole sourcing without prior PPA approval, you have to go for a ratification. And Atabedu will explain to you, the ratification is a whole gamut of procedure. And so if all these things can happen under the nose of the PPA, then PPA itself needs serious reform.
Yes, but
that is where I will land. So let me land there. That is where I will land. That is where I will land. That, and you see, the problem of this country has never been that we don't have laws.
Correct.
The problem is of this country has been that the people who are being paid to do a job are failing to do their job, and we are not punishing anybody.
At the PPA,
everywhere
there was a head of the PPA.
Yes.
Whose job was to make sure things are straightened.
And he
created a talent discovery company and was diverting the contracts to his company and piling his bank with money. When he was caught, both Shraj and Amidu, Martin Amidu, found that there were lodgements in his accounts which could never be explained from his original account holding, the money in his accounts. That money was frozen. Guess what? Through whatever it is, he's managed to take all his money out, and we are still chasing him in court after he has taken all the money out.
But again, it comes back to.
So there's no punishment. The only punishment he suffered was
we have laws that could have prevented him.
Dismissed him. That's all.
We have laws that could have prevented him from even getting access to the money. What happens to those ones?
So please, because you mentioned me, see, in strategy is basic. In times of chaos and complexity, you simplify. So if you have all these things put there, and consistently it is being observed in breach, you take it out, simplify, we move on. When we get to the point where we can handle it, we come back. So please, if you agree with me, just agree with me. Let's move on, because we clearly
So let's come back to where Samson wants me to start from. There is nothing like sole sourcing in our law. If you go to the interpretations where the definitions are, it is not there. As professionals, we know the terminologies we use and what it means. Procurement is not the same as purchasing. Strategic sourcing is not the same as purchasing, but we use them interchangeably sometimes. Sole sourcing applies to a situation where there is only one person who can give it to you, proprietary material. That is the reason why I'm telling Kofi that I need it. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
During COVID, Ministry of Communications decided to implement systems that would allow government machinery to operate remotely. They decided to acquire Microsoft licenses that would allow workers to share files, to do emails, to communicate, have video conferences and all that. You need a Microsoft license. You have one option to go to Microsoft, who has that proprietary material. In that instance, it is sole sourcing.
You go to just that supplier.
You are dealing with the one with the license to provide. You can't get it anywhere. It's a sole source.
Right.
Then you go and do a deal with Microsoft.
Right.
Under those circumstances, the Act provides the section 41A. Now, 41A doesn't give you the details of what you need. If you go to the LI, that goes with it. The LI specifies in detail the information that the applicant has to submit to PPA. Now, if I should ask Mr. Suleimana, boss, in these big push contracts, the application that was made to PPA, if I give you the LI right now, or first let me ask, did you see a single application and its corresponding approval from the PPA for any of those ones?
Yes, so I have copies of some of the contracts here, the actual contracts. And for each of them, you would see if the PPA approval is indicated, either it's a restrictive tendering or
so I need us to do an exercise for the benefit of the public.
You have now just explained the one room
yes,
where sole sourcing occurs. There is only one supplier for technical reasons.
Yes.
Particularly because of patents, copyrights, or what you call propriety reasons.
So there's an important point there. Maybe let me please make it. The point I keep making is this: based on what you're saying, if you want a solution to allow people to work remotely, okay, one, it is not only Microsoft that gives that solution. In fact, the better ones are not Microsoft. Okay, the more common ones are not Microsoft. That is one. So you can describe what you want and let everybody come and apply. That is one. And then pick the right one. Two, if it is specifically Microsoft you wanted, it is because of a feature, something unique to it. Now, that you are allowed to put in your description of what you are looking for. So if it says, this particular solution must have 3 horns, and Microsoft is the only one that has 3 horns, let 10 people apply. In the tendering process, it will become obvious that only one has 3 horns. Then you pick that one. So the only thing that really sole sourcing does is prevents you from going through all the others before you get to 3 horns.
Right.
My point is, we make laws assuming that honest men will apply them.
Right.
But in this case, they don't. So just kill it.
Right.
Let's all go through the process, and then we'll
So back to you. You have explained one instance the law allows, but with Kofi's intervention, are you able to say in Esler's situation, it was also an emergency situation, which is one of the rooms allowed by the law, emergency?
So yes, I'm coming to that. There was an emergency at that time.
Right.
And Kofi, at that time, you tell me, in Ghana, how many computers have operating systems which are other than Microsoft?
Many were using Microsoft, but Zoom is system agnostic. So you can use other things on top of Microsoft. So there's solutions to it.
It was not just about Zoom. So if you buy, if you buy a Microsoft Enterprise E5 license, you get the Office suite plus the documentation management plus the virtual communication and all that. So because they already have the Office suite and those things, it makes a lot of sense.
So let's not stay in the details of those
ones.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that in that instance, the one option to do sole sourcing would have been to go to Microsoft. But as soon as you made the decision not to go to Microsoft, it removes the need for sole sourcing. Yes. Because Microsoft has partners. And in this market, there are many partners. And so to get value, you immediately engender competition. So we could have actually done a competitive bidding process and gotten people. That's what I'm saying. That
so cases of a sole supplier, emergency situation, explain the other ones, compatibility, national security.
Okay, so then I have to go to the provisions. Now, the B of 41 is the agency, where issues of urgent nature crop up. And then you, by virtue of the agency, you seek approval.
Example.
But there is, there is a caveat, which we always ignore. It says, except for dilatory conduct.
Correct.
And dilatory conduct is typically what we call shehain. You can't sleep on the job for the thing to become an emergency and suddenly scream that it is urgent.
Right.
So if I hear the minister say that, oh, there are roads from the previous government that were not paid for, which have suddenly become urgent, so we have to do this. That is dilatory conduct. And on that basis only, the PPA should not have authorized it.
9 years.
The PPA should not have authorized it.
Okay.
Again, as procurement persons, we know by our training what constitutes emergency or urgency. Number one, it should be something that is going to lead to a disruption of continuity of business. Number two, it should be something that is going to lead to the loss of lives. Number three, it should be something that is going to lead to an environmental hazard. if it is not any of this, it is not an emergency.
Okay.
So all of these don't qualify.
So that is why I asked him.
Or it's as a result of a natural disaster.
The natural disaster comes to the next one, C.
Okay.
The natural disaster is the C, and I'll read that one.
You're still here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Ghana, we put Ghana first. Here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first, and that's exactly what we are delivering for you with my guests who are in the studio, and now Kwabena Atebedu, a foremost procurement expert, trying to explain to us the circumstances allowed by the law for sole source, which is what President Mahama speaks about, rare situations, and yet for a long time now, rare has become the default. Yes.
Now, the C of 41 says that where owing to a catastrophic event, there is an urgent need for goods, works, and technical works, making it impractical. Now, catastrophic event is natural. So there's been a disaster, like we normally do every year, I think twice a year. We have the floods in the north. Yeah. And then NADMO will have to step in. Now, at that point, if NADMO needs mattresses and they don't have mattresses, they need to procure mattresses immediately. It has to do with saving lives.
Right.
So they can get an approval under section under C to buy mattresses and buy tents and buy food. That is where this applies. Instructively, the World Bank has guidelines and toolkits for when situations like this go. They call it FCCE. Fragile, catastrophic, something else. I have it here. So even under those FCCE, the World Bank doesn't say that you should go and call one person and hand the contract over to the person. There's a process in that document they have prepared. And I can give you the document after we finish the program. So under no circumstance should any of these contracts have passed PPA's approval as single source. Now, let me come to what single source is. Single source is when you decide for obvious reasons, which in this case the acts have stated the obvious reasons, that I need to go with one person. You are choosing a single party. That is completely different from when it's a sole party. They are two different things. So if you ask me, none of this passes as single source. And the board erred, according to the act, in granting the approval. Because if you go to the LI, and I'll read the requirements.
You do that quickly. I need to take a quick break and return.
An application
for us to get into the meat of it. Because Sule was going to take us through the amounts and all other issues.
So now I'm drawing his attention. I want to see that one when he goes into it.
All right.
Then the name of the proposed company, the professional and technical qualifications and competencies of the company. Now, when we say the professional, it's not because you went to school and have a civil works, civil engineering certificate. You should demonstrate to us that you have delivered projects of certain nature. That is why typically in the pre-qualification process, we ask for a list of references on people we can contact. We ask for projects you have done, so we can go and assess the project on the ground. All those are part of qualification. And remotely, they define what your capacity to contract is. Now, in the last couple of years, the biggest harm we did ourselves is when we changed the company's law in 2019 and we removed the business objects requirement. Because at that time, for us procurement people, you bring your introductory letter, you bring your company registration, we look at your objects. If I see that you are registered as a civil contracting company, that is the category you will get. That's where you play. You don't play anywhere else. Now, it has been removed. So, all these guys who do create, loot, and share need to do is to set up one company. If he hears that there's a contract for civil works, he shows up and he qualifies. The next minute they are doing sanitation, he shows up, the same company. The next time they are doing medical equipment, he shows up at Ministry of Health. So you can see that the environment and the ecosystem has been created to facilitate the create, loot, and share. And that's the problem we have.
So one more question, then I take a break and return. You suggested that you were compelled, the circumstances compelled you to join Kofi to say maybe we should ban this kind of exception, which is now being abused to the default. I mentioned to you that I was speaking to Professor Jampo. He was giving me a situation. I've sat as a lawyer on a tender entity before. And he was telling me two situations. I want you to tell me why you think under these kind of circumstances it is prudent to ever think that we can do away with sole or single source. Somebody brought a bid. And you know, normally you pick the lowest, lowest evaluated. So the one who brings the least price, that is all other factors considered.
Yes.
When you bring the least price, we pick you. If we want to buy, say, diaries, and we say bid, those of you who bid, the one who gave the least price automatically gets it once they qualify for all the other compliances. So there's a situation where they want, say, pens. It's not pen, but it's an expensive thing they wanted. And then the least quoted price. They found later that the least in the market, those who are known to sell that kind of thing, actually have a lower price, a price lower than the least. Where they were going to save almost about, is it 200,000 or so? So he found himself confronted with that. I said, what should I do with this situation? There was one other situation where, almost like the same thing, someone is quoting the least being in excess of 1.5 million. And then they find out that the original people who did the project, which had now expired and they needed to do it again, had actually done it for about less than 600,000 and were ready to do it now at almost the same price. And yet his entity was going to pay 1.5 million for it.
Okay.
The question is what?
I get what the point is making. Now, first of all, when you set out your tender, you set your regulations. As the employer, you have every right to terminate the process at any time up to when you do an award. So as long as you haven't done an award, you can terminate the process. So if as part of your evaluation, you find out that there's a better source than what you have every right to terminate the process.
You have already awarded, but now you find that even those with the best expertise for that particular thing or known for that particular product have prices far less than the one who came on the competitive bidding.
As soon as you have awarded, you have moved into the legal realm.
Contract.
It's a contract. You know the term. The two parties can agree and come back to the table. You can go and extract all the proof that you have done me in, even though it was my error, because I didn't do my due diligence, and come back to negotiate, just like we have done with our energy contracts. If they are minded to play ball, they would agree, reduce the cost.
If they are not?
If they are not, you are stuck with them.
You are stuck?
Yes.
Yes, you are stuck.
You are stuck.
Because there's a point I want to make.
Why can't you terminate? Why can't you terminate and use sole or single source to get the best price?
So you are taking me to where I don't want to go to today.
Termination has consequence,
Termination has consequence. That is why if you go to section 89 of the Act, where it says that if the board has a reason to believe that there's been a contravention of the Act, first, they appoint an investigator. The investigator will go and do an investigation, an audit, whatever it is, and come back to the board with a report. Now, when the report comes and it confirms the contravention, because a contract would have already been awarded and termination has implications, the first of 4 options the board has is to terminate the contract. Now, they can only use that one if terminating it will not create any liability.
Okay. So
but
now,
the second
now
one is where I want to land.
I take a break.
As soon as they choose the second one, and there will be a liability. That is where they do ratification.
Okay. Kofi, what were you going to say quickly?
I'm going to say you have missed a central point. The central point is the principle of ultimate responsibility. If you are the head of any entity, and we have ministries, departments, and agencies, commissions, and all kinds of where experts are supposed to be, and if you sit over, so we say, go and buy us X, you are supposed to be the chief executive. You have experts, advisors, and all those people, and you end up in a tender that picks a bad choice, you should lose your job first. Okay? If you have time, I explain it. Because there could be collusion, and if it's not collusion, it is serious incompetence. So to the extent that it was obvious, it's in the market, it is known, it's a notorious fact, and you could not find it, it shows you are incompetent, you don't know
Procurement
your job.
officers get into all sorts. We take a quick break, we'll return, Sule will get into much more of the details, and then this will segue nicely into the Value for Money Office. The name of the law is Value for Money. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And my guest that you have been listening to so far, Suleiman Ibrahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. They have the Investigative Journalism Project, the Fourth Estate, who've been doing such an excellent job over the period. Some people decide to call them Akachu, and they claim that they are collapsing indigenous business. Well, if you do the wrong thing, they should tell you that being indigenous business is not enough. Kwabna Atabedu is management consultant and procurement specialist. Nana J. Bafo Ewa, overseeing a Soloku festival in Easter, is also here. He is the MP for Mensha South. Now, yes. Okay, I've just been told that I forgot to mention that the rebel is also here. Okay, so he spoke last, and he was making a point that he didn't finish. We hear Kofi briefly, then Sule comes in back with more of the details, and we want to tie this also, as we have advertised, to the Value for Money Office.
All right.
Already, the suggestion is that this is really needless.
So the point I was trying to establish, based on your analogy, was that behind all this is the first principle of the ultimate responsibility, which is borne by the chief executive. Just using your analogy, we are saying the chief executive has to do some procurement. Now, there is an authorized dealer, a sole authorized dealer for that particular item. Okay. Now, he goes through a whole tender process and selects somebody without consulting the authorized dealer. Now, the chief executive bears ultimate responsibility, even though he may not be a procurement person. He has to use the procurement people around him, and they would have advised him that you can't necessarily do a procurement of something where there is a sole authorized dealer without going through the authorized dealer. So if you bypass that person, either you are ignorant or incompetent. And then you go around and then you end up picking something which is either not the best quality or not the best price, and that the authorized dealer could have given you something more. You should be sacked first. And throughout this discussion, that is getting lost. The ultimate responsibility.
Are you by this stress suggesting that we actually can do away with sole or single source?
I am by this straight saying we can do away with the whole PPA law, because you have a president, he has a cabinet, he has 60 ministers, and then the ministers have ministries. The ministries have departments and agencies, commissions, etc., made up of experts. These are people we have taxed, and there's enough resource around them to make good decisions. They are not making those decisions, and we are not holding them to account. So we give them a law supposed to guide them, and they are ignoring the law. Look, if you look at so many of these institutions we are talking about, the PPA is under the Ministry of Finance, VFM law is under the Ministry of Finance, the Commitment Authorization law is under the Minister of Finance, the PFME,
Public Financial Management Act.
Public Financial Management Act, and the Ministry of Finance, the Internal Audit Agency, and we have packed series, layers of these institutions under one man, Minister of Finance. Without all of these, he should be able to do his job or be sacked. Given all of these, he doesn't do his job. We give him a Public Procurement Act, he goes and uses the wrong one, and then he comes and complains. When we miss the principle of ultimate responsibility, we'll never solve the problem. We should start letting the chief executives, the ministers, and the people who are interested, who are responsible, pay the price for not doing the work. And here, censure comes in. Censure. If a minister is consistently failing, Parliament has a role.
Have you glanced? It's so many pages, so many sections. When I got hold of it last night and tried to read the Value for Money Act. So if you have glanced, do you sincerely think that it is unnecessary?
Totally unnecessary. It is another layer trying to solve the same problem that we should solve with a fundamental principle. What do you mean by value for money? What is the PPA supposed to do? And by the way, value for money, are you saying therefore that chief executive sitting there, that minister sitting there, with all the people he has, and by the way, the minister is an agent of the president. So all of them have failed, and all the laws that we have have also failed, and now we are resorting to another law. In this country,
this is the object of the law. That is section 2. It says object of the office. The object of the office is to A, regulate, monitor, coordinate, promote, and develop value for money assessment. B, review procurement practices, including cost estimation methodologies, contract management processes, expenditure control mechanisms employed by covered entities in the management of public funds, and C, ensure efficiency in public expenditure.
In other words, everything you've read here constitutes the fundamental job of a chief executive and his accounting office, his auditors, and his advisors. This is what they have to do. And before this, you have the PPA law. Before this, you have so many public financial money, so many different layers of law.
If you go to the PFA, the PFM law, the Act, there are specific rules.
You had already referred to some of this. I don't want to cut you. I want to announce that Al-Hassan S. Suhaini, MP for Tamale North, Deputy Minister, Roads and Highways, joins us, and he will take some very direct questions because this whole sole sourcing brouhaha is actually about his ministry. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Right. Yes. Atabedu was making a point.
Yes, I'm saying that if you take the Public Financial Management Act, there are specific roles that are identified and they are given specific objectives. Now, there's somebody called the spending officer. That spending officer is the same person who is referred to as the head of entity in the Procurement Act. In both instances, that person is the one with responsibility for ensuring value for money. So bottom line is this, it's a useless act that is only going to create confusion because the obligations and the responsibilities are already established in several laws.
Yes.
All we have to do is to make them work. And when it is not working, all those laws have clauses in it for contraventions and for penalties.
Yes.
Why are we not applying the contraventions and the penalties?
Please listen again to see if you repeat what you said. That is a useless office. Functions of the office. To achieve the object under Section 2, the office shall A, conduct value for money assessment of public sector projects, develop and enforce standards for value for money assessment and evaluation tools, provide technical clearance for capital expenditure, build capacity of public officers in public expenditure and value for money assessment, ensure transparency and compliance with value for money principles, benchmark cost and prices for goods, services, and infrastructure, develop guidelines and standard tools for the estimation of cost and procurement assessment, undertake post-award and post-completion value for money assessment of contracts. Remember that, post-award and post-completion value for money assessment When they are those who issue the certificates, what do they normally do? Oh, okay. It looks the same for me.
Exactly the
assessment of contracts and public sector projects to ascertain compliance with approved budget, timelines, specifications,
Samson,
outputs and consent.
Each one
provide technical advice and training on value for money assessment and practices to a covered entity. Publish periodic value for money reports, and they are supposed to maintain a database of findings and reports of value for money assessment, monitor compliance with this act, impose administrative sanctions for breaches of the act, advise the minister on matters related to this, and then they will perform other functions that they may be required to. And there's a body. In that body, you have the chartered accountants president appointing somebody to be there. You have a lawyer from the legal directorates of the Ministry of Finance and also from the Attorney General and so on. And procurement, someone from procurement office and so on.
Samson, you see,
are you ready for me to go into it?
Yes.
Are you ready for me to
I want to hear from you, if you can say what you said earlier, having heard of their functions and the governing body that is supposed to be doing this special job to make sure that we don't waste money.
I'll tell you 5 things that are going to happen. The first one is that it's going to create it's a recipe for chaos. That's the first one. Number 2, it's a useless duplicity of rules. Number 3,
duplication of rules.
Duplication of rules. Number 3, it is creating a situation where there will be turf wars. Because somebody has to be subservient to somebody. And that people are going to flex their powers, so there will be turf wars. Now, there's also another issue in that act, which is fundamentally a flaw. The VMO is saying that the president would appoint the chairman of the board. He would appoint the board members. He would appoint the director general and the deputy director general.
Article 70 requires this. They can't bypass it.
And he will appoint the other staff of the office. It means technically that whole organization is at the behest of the president. It becomes a political office. What it means is that as soon as the next government comes...
But the law requires the president to take into consideration expertise.
It doesn't matter.
And remember that on the board also, there are institutional representations. The chartered accountants are there. There is the institution of engineers who will nominate one person by the president to their president to be there. There's also the institution of surveyors who will be there. Public Procurement Authority,
slow down,
Audit Service will be there.
Slow down. These are the fundamental principles for the constitution of a body. Now, at the entity tender level, those same fundamental principles are applied. The entity tender committees are there, and yet, with the presence of all these people, we are having this trash happening. So, what is wrong with it? Because the principle is fundamental. Now, in this case, I am saying that, and I speak from my background as an HR practitioner at some point in my life. When you constitute a body, it is not human beings you are populating. It is competencies you are looking for. Now, a board is the controlling mind of the organization. They determine the direction it goes. And if you have people who are clueless about what they are doing, in which direction are they going to go? So that is the problem.
So the consultant who was appointed to do this law's work, preparatory work, normally the public engagement, stakeholder engagements they do, even the parliament's subcommittee would have gone through this law. They all didn't see that this is needed.
Where was the stakeholder engagement? Because I am part of the Ghana Institute of Procurement. The Ghana Institute of Procurement wasn't consulted.
If I may come in quickly. My brother.
Point.
I think that I would always want to elevate, in terms of my perspective, to look at the intention of the minister. The minister really and truly sees a problem. Let's accord him that. Let's not be quick to dismiss him.
We all see a problem.
I'm coming.
It's about how you solve it.
I'm coming. Let's not be quick to dismiss what he has put on the table. I would rather want us to look at it from his intention. And so let's accord him some, let's credit him with some if you like, let's pat him on
It's
the back.
actually supposed to be an independent office, not subject to control
Samson,
or direction of
I'm coming.
anybody.
I'm coming.
How independent
For every
will it
policy-
wait, pause. How independent will it be if they are appointed by
My
the
brother,
president? All of them.
My brother, I'm
How
coming.
independent
My brother,
will they be?
I am coming.
Judges are appointed by the president largely, but they are supposed to be independent.
There are policies.
Yeah.
Policies
at any time.
are initiated to solve problems. And so I see the minister desiring to solve a problem. However, in my view, the prescription is wrong. The prescription he has put on the table is wrong, because the prescription is going to give us the same problem as the PPA.
Multiplying.
Look at the PPA's board, membership of the PPA's board. Look at the composition.
It's almost the same, yeah?
It's almost the same.
What's the point?
That's the point I'm making.
Almost the same.
That's the point we are making.
And so, really and truly, the prescription is wrong. In fact, the solution to his problem is even inherent in the PPA Act.
Yes.
Look, it's the value for money is inherent in competitive tender. Value for money, even if you are applying single sourcing, requires approval of the board. And so if the board is even diligent, proactive, up and doing, the board will give you value for money in its approval of even single sourcing. And so, Samson, I think that the problem has to do with the PPA's Act. If we think that the PPA's Act is the problem, which I agree, then the solution should be fixing it rather than value for. Samson, let me wrap up.
But have you realized, I haven't read all of it yet, but the request to the Value for Money Office, which has a unit to conduct value for money assessment, in section 23, this is how it's couched. You know exactly what I'm going to say because you're a lawyer. It says, a public entity may request the office to conduct a value for money assessment or of a proposed or executed public sector project or procurement.
That is the philosophy behind the establishment of the PPA. And so, if anything at all, the board of the PPA must have a board subcommittee for the purposes of value for money.
Okay.
And you see, we have to look at this.
Actually, correction.
In terms of,
Actually, the PPA has an office called the due diligence office.
Correct.
That is their job.
Every procurement entity inbuilt in their processes include value for money.
Respectfully, let me say, respectfully, all procurement is aimed at value for money.
All of these we are talking about have not worked.
But Samson, you see,
so what should we do?
There's a distinction.
So let's not add institutions when they are not working.
There's a distinction that we are not even adverting our minds to. When you talk of value for money, you are looking at value for money in terms of, you are not looking at value for money in terms of just pricing.
Yes,
you are also looking at the utility.
Samson, can we go to my slides?
I'm coming. You're also looking at, Samson, you're also looking at
the minister just came in. I need him to join the discussion, but I want Sule to go back to the points about these 81 or 115 big push contracts, and then the minister will take the questions directly and respond to them. Yes.
The job is not.
Okay, thank you, Samson. I'm happy that my brother Suhini is here.
Right.
You know, I was making the point that when we did the publication, they uploaded what they now say are the correct projects, 54 of them being the new big push, as the minister would want us to call them, and 23 of them. And I already spoke about the inconsistencies in the dates. I think at the preliminary stage, there was no time to even come to the 54 that they had posted as the new big push. And to start is to also mention the inconsistency right there, even from the dates, where the date of award for the first contract, as is indicated there, is September 2024. Again, if it was about this thing about novation or whatever they call it, we expect that we will see that in the list of the 23 and not in the 54 that they want us to believe that they awarded. But let us even grant that it's a mistake, even though I don't believe so, because there are quite a number of the dates that are indicated here that are 2024 preceding when the NDC came to power. But Samson, what is even more curious and what sort of betrays what I believe was an attempt to deceive the public that the ministry wants to be transparent is that the whole controversy was about the procurement method that was used. In uploading their own data, they conveniently take out the procurement method that was used. So we took their own 54 and did the analysis. 47 out of the 54 are sole sourced. Only 7 are restricted. None, not even one, is competitive. So if you wanted to be transparent, and we're talking about procurement processes, why do you then publish and take out the procurement method? Because you know that 47 out of the 54, and in this case, it shoots up the percentage to 87%. What we did on the 107 was 76. Now, if you use their own data and look at the fact that 47 out of the 54 were sole sourced, it takes you to 87% of the projects being sole sourced. Now, Samson, I think the other things that have been raised have been, urgency. So you hear the minister says, one of the things that they had to do was to lot some projects. So in some cases, when there is maybe 45-kilometer or 50-kilometer road, instead of giving it to one contractor, and the contractor may fail, what you do is that you break it down into lots, so that you give it to different contractors, and if one contractor fails...
Which is a good thing to do.
Yes, which is a good thing to do. But here we are. You are from Kumasi.
Yes, please.
Kumasi Outer Ring projects. Lot 1, 15 kilometers. Lot 2, 15 kilometers. Lot 3, 15 kilometers. Are awarded to the same contractor. So did we go or did we come?
Exactly.
If you take...
And let me speak to that one. It may be counterproductive because you see, in the core principles of procurement is economy. Now you want economies of scale. So if you have 45 kilometers and you give it to one person, it gives you more leverage to reduce the unit cost than to break it into small pieces. Each one of them will need mobilization. Each one of them will have preliminaries.
Okay.
In fact, we had a training for the Fourth Estate recently, and the people who came to do the training said, look, red flags. When you see a project that has been lotted, broken into lots, begin to look at it as a red flag.
Remember the NLA former boss, former.
Yes.
When he and contracts connected to his family.
Yes.
He had to lot it in a way that he will evade the threshold that he's allowed to approve.
Yes. Exactly.
So if he's allowed to approve 100,000, he lots them into 99,000.
Exactly.
Yes.
They are playing games.
Yes. And it is not just that project. You take dualization of Winneba Cape Coast, Lot 1, Lot 2, Lot 3, all awarded to the same contractor. So the point about we lot it so that different contractors is neither here nor there. They are just trying to deceive the public. The other thing.
But what you discovered, is it pervasive that even though they say they've lotted it, so they can spread it and get completion quickly, they have lotted but giving to the same person? Is it pervasive?
Well, I mean, as I said, you look at the Kumasi outer ring is the same thing. Dualization, Winneba Cape Coast is the same thing, and these are major projects.
If you want to know if it's pervasive, this is just the big push.
Yes.
Let's go back and audit all their contracts. You see a trend. And go beyond who are behind the companies. Beneficial owners.
The other thing, Samson, I know we don't have time. The other thing that they talk about, and I think that has been the major part of it, is, what is important is the cost inflated?
The question I asked earlier, that I thought the central concern of all of us should be, have we had value for money?
Yes.
He can't decide for us what is important. That's the first thing you shouldn't do, because that is insulting our intelligence. We know.
Who? You mean?
If the minister said what is important is...
I'm asking that question. Shouldn't that be our concern? Even if they are familiar people, cronies or whatever involved, are they delivering value for money?
Okay. Now, I'll take you back to theories. In decision making, there are two schools of thought, the deontological school and the teleological school. The deontological school says that there are rules There's right and wrong, and you play by the rules. If it is wrong, it is wrong. The teleological school says that the end justifies the means. What you are telling me is teleology. In teleology, it means Robinson Crusoe is a hero.
Foundation lectures for PhD.
So, yes, Samson, let me go on. Now, so when you take the cost, I believe we remember a road called Dodo Pepeso Nkwanta.
Correct.
Yes.
Because of the developments around it in 2016. Now, if you look at that road, the construction of it in 2016, it was an EU-funded project. So it was awarded on international competitive tendering. The project cost was 25.9 million euros. 25.9 million euros. Today, that same project, and it was commissioned in 2016. And if you remember, President Mahama said, this is one project that is so pleasing to the eye.
Yes.
And then when Manasseh did his documentary, he talked about, over a short period of time, there were issues and so on.
And he even said that Ghanaian contractors should go and learn how to do road like that.
Yes.
We remember, we don't have short memories.
That road has now been awarded now for rehabilitation. And guess what? If you look at it, it's awarded at 804 million. If you were to convert that to euros, it comes to over 63 million euros.
3 times the cost.
The road was constructed with 25.9. Now it's been re-awarded
For renovation. The renovation is more expensive.
Yes, it's 63.
It's more than 2 times.
Euros don't depreciate like CDs.
Million.
So before we get presumptuous, we need to know what goes into it,
The
right?
works. The
No,
scope of
but
works.
please. It's not the construction.
Construction is more expensive than repairs.
Cannot be less than repairs. You see, it's straightforward, and we beat ourselves in the English and all those.
You see,
but some things are straightforward.
Samson, there's
And
Again,
you know
if it's an
something.
asphalt road,
Samson,
the lifespan
the
of an
scope
asphalt
of-
road should be
Samson,
30 years.
Samson, road construction, the scope of works would normally inform the cost.
Yes.
You see, the politics that we have done in this country over the years has been a politics of conveyor belt. One party comes to government on the back of complaints that somebody is not doing something right. When he comes to power, he will do the same thing. And then the other person will now complain. And so we shift to the other side. And so it is mostly scope of works.
Thank you.
But they chose to accuse the MPP of corruption.
So
That is why
if I may,
today they have X on their faces.
so if I may,
Right. So the minister is patiently watching and listening to all of you. Quickly do it and go to him.
So you see, if you look at it as cost per kilometer, it comes to about 17 million Ghana cedis per kilometer, and that's about $1.6 million a kilometer today. But that's not only, there's so much about this Dodo Pepeso thing that I don't know why. Samson, this is, in my hand is the commitment authorization letter signed by Honorable Kisley Atufosen on July 11. And in fact, quite curiously also, he says he's responding to the minister's letter dated July 10th. So the minister's letter to them requesting for commitment authorization was on the 10th, Atu issues on the 11th. And if you look at Dodo Pepeso, the commitment authorization for the
What problem do you have with expediency?
Oh.
They are working fast.
Yes,
It's
they are
efficiency.
cross-board for everything.
That's good.
Yes, it's a good thing. We should see it everywhere.
The commitment authorization figure is 684 million, but the contract is awarded at 804 million.
Far more than what was committed.
Over 120 million difference for the Dodo Pepeso. The other thing about the Dodo Pepeso is that it's awarded to a company that was incorporated in January 2025. At 804 million, that company must be an A1B1 company.
You still
the
like the
Honorable
speed,
Minister is here.
You like the speed?
So where did that company perform? What was the previous track record? What did that company do that registered in January 2025 is qualified to get an A1B1 certification to execute a program?
Who is this
And
company?
the sum is
The company is called Growth 82.
And you were speculating or you were being factual when you say, oh, it was rather Atabedu that said, go check the beneficial owners.
Yes.
You know who is behind this company?
I know, but I actually even decided that I may not want to put out the names of companies, but because you asked,
Okay.
Grove 82.
It's who is behind it.
There's a guy, two people, somebody called Imam Zaid, quite a name.
These are nominal owners.
Yeah,
But beneficial owners today.
But we'll go into that. Now,
But then, if they are the nominal owners, it means they are the controlling minds. Now they are the directors. Supposedly. Now that is where, when you are doing the qualification or the pre-qualification, you have to state, especially in construction, the key personnel and what their records are, including their professional training.
Yeah, key technical
if none
personnel.
of them is a civil engineer or has an engineering background, if you look at the key people, they do not qualify.
But you spoke of.
Okay, we don't know that.
So because of time, you guys, you are
Distracting you.
So you see, Samson, cost again. There is this Winneba Cape Coast Lot 3, Winneba Cape Coast dualization, Lot 3. There's supposed to be an interchange at the Winneba roundabout. That's a different project. And then there is a 25-kilometer stretch that is awarded as a lot. Samson, it's 3.68 billion. When you do the conversion, it comes to 154 million cedis per kilometer. You ask yourself, what at all are we really doing?
To the road.
24-kilometer stretch. They may talk about, oh, there is an interchange, there is this, there's that. But it comes to 154 million Ghana cedis per kilometer. There are several of them. But there's no time.
So now, wait for him. Yeah.
You take Hokwetoy, it comes to 49 million per kilometer. Now, there are even roads that are surface dressing. They call it surface dressing. Normally, in local language, we say surface. The kind of thing that, Charlie, quick, you have to fix something. And some of them are over 10 million Ghana cedis per kilometer.
Highest in the world.
Over 10 million per kilometer. So they are talking about cost. Is the cost inflated, and so on and so forth. I'm just giving you the peso because they say, oh, you are not an engineer.
So initially, we understood that your project was intended to expose the hypocrisy and the contradiction with the promises in campaign and promises elevated to even making a law to ban and for rare circumstances. You wanted to expose that. Now you are going beyond that to say we can actually see that there may not have been value for money.
Yes.
And that these are contracts handed to cronies, perhaps party financiers.
Well, I mean, we haven't gotten to that point yet in terms of whether cronies, of course, we have the data from the ORC, so we are interrogating the companies and who own them and all of
Let me help rephrase that. I'll help you. Just a minute. It turns out that Ghana is one of the countries which has the highest cost per kilometer in the world for road construction. Nobody's saying chronism or whatever it is, but how does it come about? And please, anybody can check it. Ghana is one of the countries that has the highest cost per kilometer for road construction in the world. So please continue.
All right.
So Samson,
How did he arrive?
apart from
You say one of them.
Imani has
They
published
are the highest.
he
said we are the highest.
Just check.
No.
Just
You
check.
see, that's the point I wanted to make. That if you take the
road per
interchange, for
kilometer,
example,
depending on many factors.
Of course,
Exactly.
yes.
Put at between $500,000 to sometimes plus
Please.
$10 million.
Coming to that was not just flippant.
But I'm telling you, what I'm also telling you is not flippant.
No. So
Cost
just
per kilometer,
Yes.
depending on various factors, is put at between $500,000
road
to, in
or
some cases,
just
plus
check.
$10 million.
So that is why I want
what are you
That's a
saying?
reference for you right
that
now.
Anyway.
I'm coming. Let me land. You see, it is not just about cost per kilometer.
You were talking
That is-
about some
you are-
interchange
yes.
issue.
Yes.
Intervention
You see,
comes
it,
to the line.
it depends on
many things.
what goes into the bill of quantities.
Exactly.
You can have a 1 kilometer stretch of road.
And that will be what tell
That, if you go to the geotechnical study, the base is not strong enough to carry the structure
what of preparation?
of
compare road
the
to road.
interchange. So you have to go down and reinforce the base before you can go up. So even though in terms of kilometers, it may be short,
Exactly.
But what goes into it may be deep. So I always want to see.
So that should be a caution to us.
Yes. I want to see the bill of quantities and what goes into the bill of quantities.
Of work.
When you go into the bill of quantities, then
Thank you.
ask yourself.
Thank you. Yes, Sule, quickly. I'm going to Suini now. So Sule, quickly.
Samson, I'll end very soon. That is why I deliberately started from the Dupepeso, where we had the cost of the previous project, international competitive tendering, was competitive. The president acknowledged at that time one of the best roads and so on. And we are doing that road now, rehabilitating that road now at more than double the cost. Yes. In fact, close to 3 times the cost. And when people talk about the scope of work and so on and so forth, Samson, we do have, here are copies of contracts. Here are copies of contracts. Now, let me move on quickly to capacity. Because that's the other thing.
Doing. That's why some of the places you write for RTI, they don't want to give you the information. They give you the information, now you're using it against them.
But that's the point of getting the information.
Yes, of course.
Use it.
No, Samson, the other point is capacity. Because we are told, because of urgency, we needed contractors who have the capacity to deliver. The president said no wheelbarrow contracts and so on and so forth. Yes, we do admit. I've looked at the list. There are contractors that have the track record, certainly. But, again, I first started with Dodo Pepeso, and I told you that the company was incorporated in 2025. And that's certainly in January. That certainly should tell you that it raises capacity issues. Samson, here, this one, if your cameras can pick it, you see big push. And the label is there, Ministry of Roads and Highways, big push program, 2025-2027. Here is a company sole sourced for a contract. If you look at the company's own clearance certificate as included in the contract, this company says they have 4 workers. Sole sourced for big push contract. We are told no wheelbarrows.
Which company is that?
I didn't want to mention companies, but since you want, this is Mr. Sanam. They are doing projects in your constituency.
Sanam doesn't have 4 workers.
I am not saying it. I am not saying it. This is the contract.
I mean, everybody knows. Anybody.
This is a contract.
What do you say to their document?
Yeah, but this
I can give it to you.
But you go on. But I'm just telling you that some of these.
If they made a mistake, why did you sign it?
Some of them. I mean, so is that debilitating? Is that anyway?
It is. As a procurement person, so when I am assessing
the road sector on that point, Sanam doesn't have 4 workers.
On 25th. In fact, in their own data that they published, if you look at the date of awards, they are even inconsistent with the dates that the contracts were signed. So you know Sanam because they are working in your constituency, and apart from that, you are a deputy minister, so you deal with them. I don't know. If I'm evaluating the contract that you have signed, I am going by the documents in it.
Fair.
Right? Now, there is even one here.
No, don't intervene yet.
There's even one here that says 1 worker. 1.
Which company again?
This company, Sweeney, you may help us. This is Mrs. Build Managers Limited. 1, it is here in the contract that you have signed. When I say you, I mean your ministry.
They are doing a contract worth how much?
This one is doing a contract worth 146 million. And there's even a lot about this contract that, if time allowed, I would have indicated. Because the 146, 30 million is allocated for the maintenance of the Department of Federal Roads headquarters. The road contract, 30 million. The project you have signed, 30 million of it is supposed to go to maintenance of Department of Federal Roads headquarters. And it is not only this contract. In this other contract, 5 million is allocated for the same purpose, maintenance of the Department of Federal Roads headquarters. And I'm not talking about even the cars and so on that are provided for. So if you are signing contracts that indicates in the SNIT clearance certificate, indicates that someone has 4 employees, someone has 1 employee, and you are telling us that you are giving the contracts to contractors who are not wheelbarrow contractors, but contractors with capacity, are you being honest and are you being truthful to the people of Ghana? How did a one company with 1 employee go through restrictive tendering?
So Samson,
remember, hold on now. I'm not going to allow any one of you to come in now anymore. I'll go to Sweeney now. Remember, the deputy minister had spoken about certain situations, rather bizarre. He says that, 1 second, 1 second. 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 He says that, 1 second, we have seen cost buildups in our contracts that show the purchasing of mobile phones and airtime for contractors. He doesn't believe that. A justification for the value for money office. He said, we have seen cost lines that indicate renting hotel accommodation for contractors. All these are competitive bid contracts. And so it is not true that only sole source or restricted tendering has been overpriced. Well, the minority leader says we won't be part of this unholy acts. The minority will not support this bill if the majority will not listen to these strong views and take them on board. We will rather pursue amendment of existing laws and so on and so forth.
A quick one, just 1 minute, please. I beg you, before you go to the minister. So when you look at the PPA Act, go to Section 92, Section 92, Clause 1.
Go ahead.
Go to Section 93. Look, we have ample provision made for offences. Ample provision made for offences, both for the people at the PPA who supervise poor procurement and the entity heads, right, who pursue these things. And so if you go and set up another office, what is the utility of it?
The question is, has anybody been punished before?
But the new law also has punishment for everybody else.
Just
in the old law, have we punished?
For reform, the problem has to do with the politicization of the appointment of the heads of the institution. So when you look at the membership of the board, look, they are all appointed by the president. And so that is where the problem really is. Let's reform the Public Procurement Act. And when we do that reform, there will be no need for another bureaucracy through another law. Because it provides enough punishment for breaches, right, which would invariably result in lack of value for money. And so I think that the call that the law is something which is not necessary. I support it.
Okay, thank you very much. So before I bring in Suini, I'm supposed to take a quick break and return to him so that we focus on him for a while. All these things you are mentioning, Kofi, and everything else you are mentioning, I'm asking myself, you remember in Occupy Ghana, we were in love with one particular law, the Government Contracts Protection Law. It's just one-page document. It's about just 6-sectioned law, and it punishes so heavily. If you say you have delivered and we go and check the certificates you say you have done and the contract is not properly done, you are going to be paying as much as about 3 or 4 times the contract that you have taken. And we'll take a break. We'll be right back to hear the minister, the Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. Well, it's been like that. The debate has been going on even during the break, and matters they're raising questions about why some road contracts have purchase of Land Cruisers inside of inside of the contracts. They can't understand why. The Deputy Minister is here. Let's see the explanations we get. My guest Nana J. Bafwewa. He's Vice Chair, Subsidiary Legislation Committee and Member Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament. He is the representative of Menshia South. Alhassan S. Suhini, the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Deputy Minister Roads and Highways, joined us a while ago, and he's taking his stand now. Kobina Atabedu is Management Consultant and Procurement Specialist. You never get it wrong with him. Nana Kofi Kwachi, Country Director, Arum Institute Ghana, joins us in our final installment of this, where we are looking at the killer no-bed syndrome. Dr. Joseph Boni also joins us over the same issue. Suleimana Brahima is here. Now, they've actually projected or moved their questioning the morality, the moral issues about the failed promises or the contradictions of the regime to value for money and suspicions of crony capture situations. Kofi Bento, lawyer and Senior Vice President, Imani Africa, is also here. And my outfit, as always, is by Habil Scooter. Call them 0200 84 19 88. 0200 84 19 88. That's Habil Scrutiny. Call them now or check out any of their socials and contact them. It's also brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance. Dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks, it's strong, it's tough. Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. Goldboard Jewelry, pure, precious, proudly Ghanaian. Malcolm, your #1 shopping destination. Waylead, your trusted home builder. Bethel Dental, the smile starts here. St. Thomas Eye Hospital, providing excellence in healthcare. And Kel Charcoal Toothpaste, happy smile. So Ini,
yes,
you've really managed yourself, yeah, because I recall the other times where you were not in this office.
Right.
You would have been part of all the banter and the interventions. Okay.
Yeah, you know, Samson, first of all, let me apologize sincerely for my late arrival. I was engaged in other equally important assignments, but I'm grateful that I've been given the concession to make a submission on the matters, even though you were almost done. Samson, first of all, I think that it's important that we recognize the importance of what is at stake. First of all, we all know the road deficit that our country faces and the importance with which that deficit has to be tackled. We know what road does to economies. In fact, the Chinese will tell you that when you want to be rich, first build roads. And so we cannot underestimate the importance of prioritizing our road sector. And again, it is not lost on anyone that this is the single biggest intervention ever a government is making to address very critical roads in this country. I mean, it's so sad that over 60 years, we cannot boast of any first-class road linking any of our any of our major cities in this country. You don't have one capital city being linked by any good road to another capital city. And that is sad. And this intervention is seeking to at least address that. And we cannot, overemphasize that. Now, because of this major intervention, the conversation that the Fourth Estate is seeking to start is equally very important and necessary, because a lot of taxpayers' money is going to be used to make this intervention. And it is important that we have a rigorous conversation that will assure all of us that even though this is important, has to be done, it is being done well. Because at the end of the day, we are going to use public funds to do it. So it's an important conversation that should not be had with emotions, that should not be had with closed minds, but that should be had with the intention of seeing progress and seeing better impact. Having said this, Samson, I come to the first announcements that we saw from the Fourth Estate, my brother Suleimana and his group. And the headline was the ministry that has become, I'm just paraphrasing, the ministry that has become the factory for sole sourcing contracts. I mean, for me, that was the first red flag. Because with all humility, when we took over at the road ministry, from 2021 till about 2025, when we took over, at least the records available to us is that that ministry had not tendered for any works. All the works that they procured, at least the records available to us, were done on sole sourcing. Now,
your minister says almost all.
Almost all, yes. Almost all. I'm saying that the records available to us. Almost all were done on sole.
Between 2017 to 2024.
At least I have gone through the record data from 2021, so I'm sticking with 2020.
Okay.
Nothing, and that's why I'm confident to even say all, because that's the data I have gone through. Now, when you look at what we have done, first of all, I have the adverts here, Samson, on the daily newspapers, the Daily Graphic and others. Over 400 projects have been advertised since we took over and procured through competitive tendering.
Road projects.
Road projects. I have the adverts here. Over 400 different projects have been procured through competitive tendering.
Do you mind publishing these for?
Oh, I can share with you right now.
Yes, please.
I can share with you.
And
roadworks.
Publish it as well.
Yes. The highways, the Ghana Highways Authority, the feeder, Department of Feeder Roads, all advertised their works last year. And they were procured competitively. I can share it with you. Now, when you look at even the data that the Fourth Estate published
but
regarding...
those are not under big push.
No, they are not under big push. Okay. No, they are just roadworks.
Okay.
I'm saying that there was no road works under the ministry that was ever published from 2021 as I have seen the data. But so when we do this for over 400 works that we have published, and then you see a headline that says the ministry that has become, then you ask yourself, when did we become? I thought we're beginning to improve the situation. Yes, we cannot use 1 year or 1 month to reverse the situation from 100% sole source to 0% sole source. We can't. But when I see that we have advertised projects that used not to be the case, and then my ministry is tagged as the one that has become the factory for sole sourcing, I raise a red flag. What is the intention of this? Then you look at even the published big push projects on the page of the Fourth Estate, and even they indicate that some of them were selective tendering. And I said, but in the past, there was not even selective tendering. So how did we become? What is the intention of describing the ministry as the ministry that has become a sole sourcing factory? I mean, first of all, it doesn't bring that open-mindedness, that honesty that is required to have a rigorous conversation that will improve the system.
They're asking the question. The thing you said you won't do, you are doing. The
I'll
thing
get
you
there.
said you ban, you are doing.
Then Samson, I go on to find out that the further publications that I see, and I'm like, wait a minute. Even if that is the case, and that is not the case, how is that a scandal? How is that corruption? How is that wasting the taxpayers' money? Even if that is the case, that I said sole sourcing was bad and I'm doing sole sourcing, at best, Samson, with all respect, you can describe it as double standards. You can describe it as hypocrisy. But it doesn't qualify to be a corruption scandal.
So you concede on double standards and hypocrisy?
I said even if that is right. I said even if that is right. You can describe it also. So I'm not conceding. So the point I'm making is that then you go into whether I should
There's
concede
a big difficulty if you are not conceding on those points.
No, I'm coming. Whether I should concede or not, then I look at it and I say, okay, what was the promise? The promise was that we will stop the abuse of sole sourcing, because there was a recognition, even in those conversations at the time, that sole sourcing was a legal tool for procuring, contracts.
It always has been.
It always has been. But then, our problem with it, backed by data from the Auditor General's report, was that it had become a norm and it was leading to inflated contracts.
Rather than being the exception. And so our pledge was to make it what it should be, an exception. Which you have failed to do so far. Well, I'll come there and then you will tell me if we have failed to do that. First of all, I'm saying that there are some works that we procured competitively. That is not a failure. Works amounting to how much? Because if I'm looking at big push, I'll get to. If I'm looking at big push, I'll get to big push. And big push involves about
1 billion sole source.
Involves
it is not an abuse.
I will get there. I'm not saying it's not
big push. Is there 1 billion series of sole source, and you think it's not an abuse?
Let's get there.
Now you are talking
not 71, more than 71.
More than 71, and you think it's not an abuse? Samson, wait.
Samson, no. I beg you. I'm still on the floor.
Please, let's allow him.
I'm still on the floor. So you see, Samson. Now you come to the big push. We are saying that, look, yes, we talked about sole sourcing. We said that we will reduce the abuse. Then you pick about 100 or so contracts and you challenge us that, look, you said you were going to improve the abuse. We said you were going to stop the abuse, reduce the abuse. But we see that you are doing the same thing. And then you look at it and we say, wait a minute, we are not doing exactly what you claim we are doing. Even though, yes, we may have to still do better, but we are not doing what you are saying. It is not like disagreeing with you. For example, you take about 81 projects, and we are telling you that some of these 81 projects are just old projects that we have simply put on a budget, a dedicated budget. And let me explain how that can get confusing.
You have renegotiated. The minister said, your boss says you have novated them.
Yes, we have novated them. Now, we have 3 funding sources at the ministry. You have the road fund, which you can use to procure and pay from. You have the GOG, which you can use to procure and pay from. And now, we have the big push account, which you can use to procure. Now, when we took over, these about 23 contracts were procured under GOG. Now, they were not paid. Contractors who had worked on those projects were not paid, and many of them had abandoned site. So we decided that because of the critical nature of these roads, let's migrate them onto the big push account. They definitely, in that migration, you definitely need to sign a document. And so when you see the minister's signature on a document that migrates a project, an existing project, from GOG to Big Push, it does not make it a new contract. And you see, I don't want to use the absurdity, but the confusion in my mind is that, look, you have, for example, the Accra and Sawam Road. You had Maripoma on it. Maripoma had done work, I think, more than 40% or 50%. And he was not paid. He was owed. Now, is it being suggested to us that we should have terminated the contract and advertised the works before we can award to a new contractor?
I don't get your point.
No.
Exactly.
I don't get your point.
But I thought what he just raised can be an exception, and a permission for the soul.
No, I'm giving the exception. That's where I'm getting to. That's where I'm getting to.
Hold on.
Can I address it? Can I address contractual disputes?
No. It's not a dispute. It's not a dispute. You govern the contract. But I started by telling you about the different sources of awarding contract. And so when you are changing the source, you can't leave the contract the way it is.
The contractor has nothing to do about you changing the source.
Absolutely.
So in your records, you do proper classification of it.
Exactly.
In your record, you are still classifying some of these things as an award. From what
exactly.
Said.
You are making a mistake.
And so it is improper.
So I am saying you inherit the contract.
Wait a minute. They have novated it.
Yes.
Call it novation. It's not a
they look at the novation as a new contract.
Which is wrong.
No, but let me ask the question. That's why I will repeat the question. I will repeat the question. In the circumstance where we had to put Maripoma project on the Ansawam Road on the Big Push and the Cape Coast one on the Big Push, is it being suggested to us that because we're going to do a new thing, so to speak, we should have been sent there?
No, hold on, gentlemen, hold on. One second. The question he just asked, does it not suggest, Atabedu, that this is where you can speak about the permission for issues including compatibility for sole source or single source?
Can I just
wait. Let me get the expert.
Quick one.
Okay, wait. Yeah.
You see, he talks about the Maripoma.
Yes.
When we requested the data, and they gave us the data, they indicated here. Suhini, here is it. Ongoing projects.
Yes.
The Maripoma contract you talk about is here. Let me just, yes, it's here. Maripoma Enterprise is here, sole sourcing. The date of award, the date of award is indicated here, 5/23/2022. So the data you gave us did not include this as part of the 107 that we are talking about.
It's an old contract.
It's an old contract, and your old document says ongoing project.
Yes, but the 23 projects are ongoing.
Don't come and use
that we have put on.
So you don't use that to now say that if we re-awarded it, because this document says you didn't re-award it.
You took it over.
And we didn't include this.
You have to find a way to pay for it.
What I'm saying is that you in your own categorization, you listed 23 projects that the minister has already indicated were novated. I know the lawyers have an issue with the term used novated, but the point is that the minister has made the point that they were taken over. And in your own data, you showed us that out of the 107, 23 of them.
No, we didn't say that.
Okay, so
which one is saying that you gave us data about ongoing projects,
yes,
which we excluded from the 107. The 107 was data you gave us indicating the award dates being dates when you were in power.
Yes.
Any contract that had dates preceding you in power was excluded from the 107.
So it's the one you awarded which is being discussed.
No. You see, when I go to the fourth estate, I've read some of your publications, and it is there. We can go right now. You have that table of the 23 that were ongoing. You have the 81 that you broke down to be the new projects. It's on your website now. And I'm saying that the 81 that are new projects, even in that also, you clearly indicated that some of them were selectively tendered. But then you lump all of this together and say 73 billion is procured through sole source. I mean, so are you saying that these ongoing projects, these ones that we are saying you separated, is not part of the 73 billion?
That's what you said.
That's what he's saying.
Is that, no, let him answer that. Are you saying that these ones are not part of the 73 billion?
Is
that what you are saying?
These ones
are not part of the 73 billion.
The 73 billion. These are not, and you can check the document.
Yeah, I will go through it. But you see, let me also address. Let me also address, please, before you ask those questions. Let me address a number of things that also came up. You see, he spoke about Kumasi Ring Road, and then he says it's put into lots. And one contractor is doing it. Yes, Tamale Ring Road is put into lots. 3 different contractors are doing it. So I'm saying that this conversation is important. It should be had, but with an open mind, not with nitpicking and not with a deliberate effort to criminalize. No, it should be had with a mind to improve what we ourselves are also seeking to improve upon.
The reason why we don't have
again is because we don't trust
breaking the bulk. Is that also not against the procurement rules?
Yes, bulk breaking is against the rules.
Is that what is happening here?
No, it depends.
Is that what is happening here?
It depends.
It's
an indication. Yes, it depends.
Yes,
breaking the bulk is to avoid the threshold.
No, so
then
this one we didn't have
error.
a threshold.
Okay. This one it wasn't about threshold.
Thank you.
What I said about breaking it is that.
But let me make the point. Wait. No. I will allow you to come.
Hold on.
But the point,
hold on.
You see, the ring road is another matter. Then you talk about the paper suit. And you say that simplistically. And you see, there may be issues. There may be issues. And I'm interested in us having a conversation that will help us all resolve the issues. But when you make it very simplistic, and it seemed like an intent, a desperate search for a scandal when none exists. It seems like, I'm sorry, it seems like.
No, use an example.
I'm sorry.
What is this?
So when we look at the peso,
yes,
and then you say that, it was originally constructed.
Yes.
Constructed with 25 million.
Yes.
25.9.
Yes.
25.9 million.
Which is a fact.
And it's not renovation. A rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation cannot cost more.
I am not. Wait a minute. I'm saying that. Look, Samson. I'm also going to be very simplistic, because I find this simplistic. The motorway was done at about £4 million.
2 lanes.
British.
2 lanes.
Yes. Today it's costing at 350 million.
10 lanes. There's difference.
I mean, so but you see, I can. That's
that changes.
When you want to
with multiple that changes. This argument it doesn't wash.
There may be issues, but how we approach the conversation, how we confront the operation, the conversation is what will help us all lead to the resolution of the issues that may even be inherent. But I'm saying that when the conversation is hard as if to suggest that, look, nothing positive is being done. Look, we didn't say that, we are not saying that this is a perfect situation. We didn't inherit one. We didn't inherit a perfect situation. But we are making efforts to improve it. And in the process, we cannot be 100% right. No, but you see, what we need is a cooperation with civil society and conversations like this that will help us improve whatever may be found to have been, not yet gotten right.
Samson. I like your admission that you cannot be 100% right. I like your admission.
Conversation.
But it is at a cost. And the cost is what we can't stand.
Yes, but you see,
we can't stand it.
Yes. When you say that we should approach this conversation with an open mind,
yes.
And we are approaching it with an open mind,
yes.
There is no difference about what is undisputable on the table.
Yes.
What is undisputable on the table is that a government in its first year awards 15 months in government. You award in excess of 70 billion contract in sole sourcing.
Now, so let me.
That is in
that is being contested.
No. Hold on. Now let me pick it from here. Can you confirm this document?
Yes.
Can you confirm this document?
This is the commencement authorization from the finance minister.
Thank you very much.
For which project?
So you have seen
for the big push project.
Okay.
Yes.
In the last paragraph of this letter.
Yes.
Clause 7, it says, please note the commencement authorization of 15 billion is a multi-year amount and the component of 7.6 billion expires at the end of the financial year, which is 2025. It means at the end of 2025, you couldn't have spent more than 7.6 million. Now, this multi-year financing says that in 2026, you can spend only 30 billion. Put together, it means you can spend only 38 billion between the 2 years. Now, we are in 2026, it's not ended. Now you have committed 73 billion. Explain to me, wait. Explain to me how you have been able to go above your commitment authorization. And let me draw your attention to the fact that the Public Financial Management Act says that you can't do this. So I need the finance minister to come and tell us what he's going to do about it.
So let me explain to you. So you see, first of all, there was another matter I wanted to address, the issue of the offices, the what do you call office?
Value for money office.
Look, value for money. You can question all of these things, and we can have a conversation as to how they can be done better, moving forward. But the truth is that,
that's what
over the years, yes, we are doing that, and we are doing that.
Please don't interrupt.
Yes, over the years. Many of these agencies have always, used, road projects to build capacity. And so as part of this big push project, our intention, because we are complaining about poor supervision, the lack of presence of the engineers. So we are taking advantage of this government investment so that we can build, for example, the Savannah region and other regions, that there are new regions that don't even have highway offices. They don't have feeder road offices. Now, as part of these contracts, some of these things were recommended by the engineers. And remember, this is not a design and build. This was done, the designing and costing was done by the engineers at the ministry and at the agencies. And they decided that, look, they can use some of these things to also help build their capacity.
Are you suggesting that the engineers have built this capacity building into the contracts?
I'm saying that it has always been.
That's why I want a yes or no.
I'm saying that it has always been.
Do we know that it is wrong?
I am saying it has always been.
Do we know that it is wrong?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That when we want corrective,
now let's have
improvements, the conversation should be seeking corrections moving forward. But I'm saying that it has always been, and it is not missed. Yes, but we are
guys,
and I'm proving to you that we have made improvements. And I'm saying that,
guys, don't let it sound like you are heckling him. Please hold on.
You see, look at. When you look at this, the question you asked, this is not the only authorization that the finance ministry has given. This does not include the novated contracts, for example. The values for the novated. That one was also given a different authorization. This doesn't include all of them.
So that takes me to the second question I was going to ask you on the novated contracts. Now, my basic understanding of a novation is that you transfer the obligations of a contract and the benefits of the contract to another party. Now, in this case,
necessarily,
I'm coming.
No,
not necessarily.
No, I'm coming. Okay.
I'm coming. That's why I'm saying.
Now, the question I want to ask:
I'm not
has the employer?
I don't want to argue about the
whether it is GOG or it is whatever it is. Has the employer in this instance changed?
No, it shouldn't.
It hasn't changed.
Yes.
Yeah, but it shouldn't.
But yes, it shouldn't change because we, as a government, you inherit liabilities and assets. But you now determine how you want to treat that liability. And because you are changing the treatment, of the liability, then you have to do a new sort of agreement.
Yes.
Okay. And that is how come it looks like a new agreement, but it isn't.
Okay.
It is not.
Okay, thank you very much. So he spent quite some time explaining some of the issues and even looking at the value for money questions that have arisen. My expectation was that because you have the technical, details of the Dode Pepeso, for example, which he flagged, you would give us the details to explain why the rehabilitation cost almost twice, more than twice the original
to be honest with
construction.
You see, some of these things you don't prepare for them, because as we're here, when he said it, I sent a message to the highways director to give me an explanation. But I'm saying that and that is what I would have expected. Honestly, we have been in media before. I would have expected, if I've said somewhere that I feel that the Fourth Estate may be drawing us to have a very interesting conversation, but they are pushing us too fast. And we may be missing a lot of essential points that could have come up. I would have actually been more comfortable in a situation where even before these publications, some of these questions were asked directly of the engineers.
Okay.
So that when you are not satisfied with the reasons they give you for the cost changes.
So now let me ask you this question.
It becomes a scandal.
Let me ask you this question. What has become of the promise, the pledge, and the assurance to Ghanaians that there will be a ban? The president used the word ban of sole source. Then I suppose he understood that there cannot be a ban. Then he said it should be the rare situations. Exactly. What has happened to that promise?
So what has happened to that promise is, first of all, Samson, what I said, that today at the ministry, not all works are procured through sole sourcing, and the evidence is there. Not all works. Secondly, under this big push, not all of them were procured under sole sourcing. In fact, by our estimate, they can disagree with it. Only 44% of that.
But Sweeney,
you see, that's why I say you can disagree with it. You are entitled to your disagreement.
Your own list.
You are entitled to your own disagreement. There shouldn't be one being entitled to a disagreement when you are giving them the facts and the figures.
Yes, but what I'm saying is,
and we have the benefit of the facts.
So already, on what basis are they doing the?
Already, you have your flagship project, which is supposed to bring a transformation to roads, to school, to hospital, and so on. And you are committing the public purse.
Sorry, I've said that.
The public purse in excess of 110 billion Ghana cedis.
Right.
Out of that, already over 73 billion has been committed. And we find that commitment has gone to a non-competitive tendering process.
Yes.
How do you answer to that?
Yes, Samson, again, it can be an insignificant improvement, but it cannot be lost on us, and it shouldn't, that there has been an improvement from what we inherited, where it was 100% sole sourcing.
Your minister says almost all. He doesn't say all.
Well, I am talking about what the data I've seen, and I'm restricting myself to 2021 to 2024. And I'm saying all.
Something.
But my minister is talking about 2017 to 2024. So we both are correct. We both are correct.
But the comparison with the past.
You see,
the comparison.
Can I finish the point I'm making? He asked for the improvement.
No, let me make this intervention. I plead with you.
No, but I haven't landed.
You were doing 95% sole sourcing in 2016 before you left government.
My brother, listen.
You promised to make sole sourcing a thing of the past.
Listen.
Even when you were promising to make so of your
the question he has asked,
still in your manifesto.
The question he has asked has nothing to do with what you are saying.
So now you understand why Kofi says that PPA should be cancelled.
You see, I'm saying that
because then it is useless.
While I'm not too sure if it is Nana who should be asking these questions, because they made almost the same promise and broke it.
And that is why Ghanaians voted us out.
Yes. So that's why I'm keeping to the Bentals and attack.
You see, Samson, the only thing the NDC seems to have raised. The only thing the NDC seems to have raised.
You don't have the moral right whatsoever. You don't have the moral right whatsoever. But I don't want us to reduce it to the MPP, NDC, ping-pong game. But I'm telling you that under normal circumstances, you don't have the moral right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen. All we are interested in is the average Ghanaian.
Let's go on the screen. Let's go on the screen in the next 5 minutes. Let's see. Thank you. Yes, let's.
It's not in my nature to get to that level, but you took
right,
me there.
Right. So take us on the value for money, right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Quickly.
Now, if I'm going to have to skip a number of slides.
Yes.
But basically, value for money is not a new concept. When we started off in the colonial eras, we had the crown agents who were the state's procurement agents.
The deputy minister says crown agents have gone. They've left.
Yes. Now, their leaving is what created this gap. Because crown agents started off as a procurement agency. Then Ghana, when we became independent, Supply Commission was set up to become the state's procurement agency. Then crown agents became consultants. So they were being used for value for money assessments. Then crown agents' global relevance diminished. So it's collapsed.
So they created a void, and they are filling the void.
The void has been created.
Right.
Now, we didn't have a Procurement Act. In 2023, we got a Procurement Act, which embedded value for money in the process. So it's supposed to be a proactive activity.
Procurement Act is not 2023. You just said in 2023.
2003, sorry.
Thank you.
Now, so value for money is embedded. If you move to slide 4, you see that the World Bank's core procurement principles, there are 7 of them. Value for money is one. Innately in procurement is value for money. So you see, the first one is efficiency, where we are trying to spend as little as possible. The next one is fit for purpose. Fit for purpose is basically standardization. So you don't need to overspec whatever you want. You get what can do the job. The next one is integrity, and ensuring that there is little corruption or no corruption in the process. Fairness has to do with equity. And then transparency. Let everybody know. So these principles, if you go through the 663, you find out that in the section 2 and section 3, it is clearly stated as part of the objectives of the Act and the functions of the Act that they deliver these core principles. So it's not lost on us. Now, why do we want to do value for money? What is value for money? And that goes to a point that Nana made earlier. Value for money is not only about cost. In the private sector, where we are profit-oriented, our value for money is leading to the delivery of a certain profit. But in public service, sometimes you have public good. And for public good, it is not always about commerce and financial benefit. Right. It's about social impact. So you need an element of social impact assessment as part of the value for money. You need an element of environmental impact assessment as we were burning to cross money in that thing we did, in spite of commerce and the finance of it. To the SIPs will tell you the mental practices are here. Now, if you go to the Public Financial Management Act, move to the next slide. If you go to the Public Financial Management Act, and then yes. Now, our processes are designed such that we do not derive that value, and that is where the core of the problem is. And that is where I have a problem with the CADA, my own community. That if you have a law that says that you do your procurement planning somewhere in August, aggregate it, consolidate it. In November, it goes into the budget. It goes to Parliament. Parliament approves budget. Based on whatever budget was approved, you come back and revise your procurement plan to suit the budget that was given to you. From then onwards, the next logical step in our procurement process is we start doing tendering. Then we go into award. So if you look on the screen right now, you see the yellow circles. That is the triangle we operate our procurement in. But there are two critical activities before tendering. That is where you derive value in what we call category management. That is a strategic aspect of procurement. It's where you go into the market to do research. So in the example that we gave, you should not have a situation where you are going to do a purchase in the market. There is an authorized dealer in the market, and you don't even know, or you don't even add him to the process.
All right.
So what kind of due diligence did you do in your market? If we are to go through the steps of category management, we will inherently, it will deliver the value we are looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't even have to come and do value for money assessment after it has been done.
Thank you very much. You had a tall list of slides to deal with, but unfortunately, this is where we have to terminate this discussion. I'll take a quick break. We'll return to no bed syndrome. We'll be right back.
Was so much congested that there was no bed. They were depriving us from getting inside, but it was so serious issues. People were sitting in plastic chairs, sitting down, lying down to get health medications. For me, I don't get it right because I know the doctors, for me, I'm very happy. They work very intensively to save people. The doctors, I mean...
Tell us about the conditions inside the accident and emergency.
The condition is that no bed. People were sitting in plastic chairs. People were sitting down, lying down to get health, to get medications.
The issue of no bed syndrome is a very, very devastating experience. When you have a loved one or you yourself, you go to the hospital, imagine all the pain and then the trauma that would take you to the hospital, only for you to get there and then you are told that there's no bed and other things. My younger brother was involved in an accident, and then we got to Konfanoche. The ambulance conveyed us to Konfanoche around 3:30 p.m. thereabouts. So it was around 3 a.m., 2:30, 3 a.m. That was when we got to bed. And even that one, we had to see some people, and then we had to unsolicited grease some palms and then just to facilitate the process for us. And then I saw a lot of people there who were in severe pain, going through severe pain, but then they also couldn't get a bed. And it's a very, very devastating experience, I mean, honestly.
All right, so Dr. Joseph Boni, who is emergency medicine specialist, member of the Emergency Medicine Society of Ghana and president of the African Federation for Emergency Medicine, joins us in the studio. He will also be assisted to help us with the expertise by Nana Kofi Kwachi, MPH, who is country director, Orum Institute, Ghana. So it's a difficult thing, right? But we see this repeating almost all the time, and we hear actually the Medical Association in their statement suggest to us that this is not limited to Kolebu. It's happening elsewhere. So if this is happening in our premier teaching, hospital, then something is definitely wrong.
Good morning to everyone, all the viewers and listeners. And it's really great that at this point there's some been attention to the bed management in Ghana. And when we talk about it, we have almost
this will not be the first time we have.
This has not been the first time, and I'll quickly get there.
Yeah.
We've simplified it to a physical bed. So I'll just like to go back and define the term that we have been using, and permit me to say, someone will be saying whether I have the right to define it, and I'll soon tell you why. The reason we use the word syndrome is that it is a group of signs and symptoms that occur together to characterize one event. So it is not a single bed is not available, it is not a doctor is not available, it is a combination of the two. And the reason we made this definition, and we defined this in a paper in 2017 as a syndrome, and this is something that we presented at multiple places, including the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons.
I'm sure until Professor Bayu was in Parliament giving us all the other angles, we didn't pay attention that it was beyond lack of beds.
Exactly. And we've had multiple discussions, panel discussions on this. This is 2020, 2019 in Kumasi, where we had a panel discussion. And surprisingly, some of the comments on Facebook when we put up the poster was, this is an Accra problem. Why are you discussing it in Kumasi?
Oh, really?
People have simplified this as a tiny event at one location and have not looked at the holistic picture of a bed management system. When we talk about the two clips that you just played about the Kolebu and Konfanoche, people were lying down, relatives, some of the people lying on the floor, we cannot even justify whether they were patients or relatives, because sometimes you even have to struggle to decide on who is sick. Because if they are sitting in chairs, they have relatives sitting by them, and then the patients themselves there, so you want to make that distinction. And it was very sad for somebody to say they had to grease the palms of people in order to get a bed. And I'm sure when we go into the details of how a bed actually does become available for a patient, we'll be able to...
You are not saying it doesn't happen. You are not saying what the gentleman said.
I would have no proof of his claim that it did happen or it didn't happen. But what I can tell you exactly is how a bed actually becomes available at some point in the emergency department.
Okay. But once again, I'm getting back there, that you need to talk to people, and sometimes you may have to say, let me give you lunch to help the process. Or either they will demand and then you give it.
So,
and that these are actually happening.
The question that comes up in our very busy emergency department is, where are you finding a bed? The reason is that your patients there's a flow of our patients. The patient either is coming into the hospital by some means, staying in the hospital, and is leaving the hospital. So I can talk about some of the activities. The reason why we're getting a lot more people coming to these particular hospitals is that they are being a victim of their own success. When you are sick, the ultimate aim is for you and your relatives to start thinking that when I get to Kolebu, there is ultimately a solution. And when I get to Konfanoche, there's ultimately a solution. Even if the solution is just 2 doors away from you, at a polyclinic, at a regional hospital or so, the public even have the notion that we should push. We should move towards going to the teaching hospital, or a hospital that they say that it is the end point, so that relatives will not even say, when I was sick, you didn't take me to the end point. So a victim of their own success. More people are getting sick, more trauma, more non-communicable diseases, more infectious diseases. So the burden, one, is going up. But then there's also limited access to the primary care. It is not just a notion that you will be moved towards a teaching hospital if you started from another facility. It's just because they might not have the resources. They might not have the personnel. Even if they have the resources, does it run 24 hours? So if I have an accident and I'm going to that facility at 10 p.m., is somebody available to take care of me as they would have been available if they were there from 8 till 2 p.m. per se? Then people get up and say, I went to this hospital, they said I should go to the next hospital, I got up, sat in a taxi, and I drove there. We don't know you are coming, we don't know what is wrong with you, we don't know what you need. So in all of this, the number of beds that you have in the emergency department remains finite. And the reason why it should continue to remain finite is that when you choose to increase it, you should never talk about just increasing a physical bed.
Okay.
You would need nurses, doctors, oxygen ports, space. The minute you overcrowd your emergency, some people were better off not being there. They are going to pick hospital-acquired infections and so on. And we forget that that is the daily working environment of healthcare workers.
Right.
You can't be walking into the hospital and the first thing you see is people on the floor, the place is overcrowded, the risk of infection to yourself also heightens the poor work environment that you have.
You have heard
Couple
about.
this with
You have heard about
the equipment that might not be available.
You've heard about the committee that Professor Bayo says, Titus Bayo says, that has been set up by the minister, and they have done some work. They are mapping the whole country, getting to know how many beds are available in each hospital and unit, including the emergencies. And they are going to sort of QR code them so that the emergency ambulances, when they are moving, they know ahead of time which hospital has a bed to accommodate this person or that. And there's also a directory where somebody sees into everything across the country, where they know if we go here, you will not be turned away. If we go here, you will be attended to. Do you find, if you are familiar with that, is that the solution?
I am very familiar with this. And if I could move just a few slides ahead, I will show you work that has been done before to look at when you make this information available. If they can help me show the slide so I can move it a little bit ahead. This is exactly what I wanted to show. So if you are looking at this, you realize that the green line that we have above is the demand for patients to move either into the main hospital, and this will then provide a free bed available in the emergency.
Okay.
And this was measured over a couple of months at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. The yellow line we see are the availability of free beds. So kindly look at the difference between the demand and the availability. If we had all of those beds available, look at that much of a demand that cannot be met. This demand cannot be met at a teaching hospital.
Sorry, please, is the availability only in public hospitals?
So this was measured in Konfanochi. So I can make the case for what happens in Konfanochi. So if you decide to have a push for availability of free beds as the solution, it will be very good if it was not centralized at one point. And this is now what makes that program perfect and excellent. It's a beautiful program. We can see where beds are in the entire country.
Abegu, I was asking
Yes.
if it's only for public hospitals or including private hospitals and other facilities.
I will not be able to give an answer to this as it is still in development and it is being rolled out.
Because there's a central point I'll make, maybe if we
Yes.
So the issue really has to do with the use of data, right, in our various medical facilities and its management.
Yeah.
Right?
It's partly the problem, because
right.
in the situations where, for example, recently the young man died, and like it happened previously, they went to one hospital, they were told, we can't attend you, go here. They were going there blindly, not knowing if they will be accommodated. So one goes to about 3, 4, 5 hospitals. In this case, you are able to tell, the ambulance picks you up and he knows we are taking you to Ridge. There is space
You
there.
said partly. I wish to submit that it is entirely the problem. It is health information management. But we'll get there. Because you see, our resources include both public and private resources. When we're having the SHS...
How do you include the private hospitals in this?
Health information management. Now, all hospitals are regulated. We have data on their what their capacities are, what they do, beds, etc., in some place called HEFRA and other places. If you combine these things and you have a problem in Ashaman, and the ambulance guy is thinking of bringing you to 37, he will bypass many hospitals that have beds, bring you to 37 and there's no bed.
Because he's taking you to the hospital you can afford.
No, so affordability is why we have NHIS. An emergency is an emergency, you have to deal with the person, and then later we'll talk about some of those things. And we have enough money being spent on health. All right, we are spending over 30 billion on health, where if you were at risk of death, and we had to put you in a private hospital and make sure we save you, government must play a part.
Let me come to you guys shortly. Nana Kofi Kwache, thanks for joining us. Let's talk solutions. And we have been here too many times. Sometimes, for people like me, I get a bit fatigued. I ask myself, what should I believe? What should I trust?
Hi, Samson. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. I think Dr. Boni has begun laying out some of the key issues that exist in our system. We have to be mindful that when we say no bed, we are reducing, as he said, a whole cascade of systemic failures into a finishing issue about what kind of bed or what kind of treatment platform is available in the emergency room. We have to be mindful also, like Mr. Kobe-Benso just said, that when we talk about bypassing the other facilities, why are those facilities actually being bypassed? Let's take, for example, radiological services. You have a car crash and you are being sent to a regional district hospital. Only 14 of them have 24-hour radiological services. When it comes to airway, the basis of emergency care, the ABC, airway, breathing, and circulation, only 4% of facilities, according to Harmonized Health Facility Assessment, had all the equipment they needed to actually do those interventions. And when we talk then also about the information, as I think has been rightly said, it's not enough to know the count of beds we have. We have to have a real-time picture of how they are being utilized, or the utilization pressure on them. We have to be able to rope in the private sector. And I think we should be clear here that a lot of these things are solved problems. We have a staffing issue where we are severely understaffed at lower levels of the health system. We are severely under-equipped at lower levels of the health system. And what that's doing is that our district hospitals, polyclinics, even regional hospitals that should be able to intervene on your behalf, nothing can be done there, and all the pressure is being pushed onto teaching hospitals. And let's be clear that while those teaching hospitals are better resourced than the other ones, they are just the least, let's say, handicapped in a system that is handicapped all the way through. So they end up becoming the kind of failure, the visible failure points for the system. But there are things that I think we can look at when it comes to, for example, equipping the facilities. There are other models apart from having to go and spend billions on procurement. We can do things like managed equipment services. For example, the UK's NHS does that. Rather than saying, let's spend the money outright in a procurement contract, a procurement gig to buy the equipment, let's engage a company that provides the equipment, that is paid a proportion of the tariff, and that runs the equipment as a service, so that when we have to do routine maintenance, they are responsible. If it's a lab equipment where we need reagents and consumables, they are responsible for supplying those things, and they make all those things available as well. We also have the question of the financing. We've heard calls, for example, for there to be an emergency care mandate by law, but there's an ethical and moral question there around on who does the liability ultimately fall. Because you have, in this case, healthcare workers who may be working at a hospital, one of the 33% of hospitals that, let's see, one of the 66% of hospitals that don't have aspirin or don't have adrenaline, which are basic emergency care supplies. If they see a patient who needs that, and they say that we are not able to take responsibility for this life, and therefore we cannot admit you, should those clinicians then be the ones who are liable when it's not by their cause that those things are not there? So when we talk about an emergency care mandate too, I think as was said by the panel, we do need a financing mechanism that guarantees the payments for emergency care. And we do need to rope in the private sector. The health information management question that we're discussing here today is not just, like I said, the count of beds. We need to have electronic medical record systems at the facilities that we can use to see real-time pictures. If we have 20 beds and 20 are used, it's not useful to know there are 20 beds. It's more important to know that there are none available. And when it comes to the private sector too, we have to be mindful that they have their own data systems, their own medical record systems, but that doesn't preclude the possibility of including them. Rwanda has a health information exchange that allows them to plug in so we can see their capacity. And if you look at all our challenges in the healthcare sector and look at the under-resourcing, especially at district and regional hospitals, anytime you compare a child facility or a mission or private facility for that same category of item, you always see that they have it at higher levels of availability and more often they have it at longer uptime. So we are missing out on all that capacity by not having them roped into the information system as well. But ultimately, I think one of the key things that is required here is some honesty about what the fundamental cause here is. This is not a problem about doctors in hospitals making arbitrary decisions. And a lot of the time, the conversation that's had around it makes it this kind of debate around good doctors and people should manage. I've seen people say, oh, well, in other countries, they can do field surgery. Well, every unit in the American military, for example, has a medic with a defibrillator. How many hospitals in Ghana actually have that? Less than 69% of regional hospitals, less than half of district hospitals. So what are we asking healthcare workers to really do under those circumstances? So we have a financing challenge that we can solve by not just passing a law, but actually allocating designated ring-fence resources that are then compensated to facilities in a frictionless way. We need to have those health information systems that rope in the private sector. We need to make sure that we have adequate staffing, and we need to be mindful of the conditions of service, because we are hemorrhaging not just any class of doctors or clinicians, but exactly the types we need in emergency care, in critical care to other countries. We can look at the equipment and we can do manage equipment service and other things there. But ultimately, it's a question of the political choices we make.
Right, quickly, and as we say, we want to focus on the solution. And so it's good you say the things you say, and comparatively what we can quickly learn from elsewhere. And I'm receiving messages from people who have personally suffered loss as a result of the no-birth syndrome. I have a colleague, lawyer, who is typing to me about a situation where, the sister was taken to one of these very prestigious, nice-looking hospitals, and, there was no bed, emergency situation. She had to be treated under a plastic chair over the night, almost for a day, and the person is sitting in a chair to be treated. She eventually passed, away. Someone says, Dean says that Kofi Bentil is absolutely right. Lack of universal health information management system is a major challenge in bed management in Ghana. So, do you think that the current solution being proffered, with the system where the beds there'll be a QR code linked to each bed, the emergency delivery systems, the ambulances will always know availability before they move, and all of that is a good start?
That's one part of the problem. It makes it so that, for example, an ambulance team that is taking a patient somewhere knows where there's capacity, but also importantly that when there are multiple patients in need of a varied array of services, that we can do efficient prioritization and know who is best served by going where. That's definitely an advantage. But underlying that, it still is the case that if we have this system and we're able to identify which facilities they should be going to, what the needs are, and we are not solving the problem of the lower level capacity, we are still going to end up routing most of the people to where there is
great point there. We understand that some of the systems that mimic a universal situation about the information we need in the health system, they do not include the private health institutions, and that should be a big problem, like Kofi Bentil mentioned, correct?
Yes, so like I said, if you look at the capacity that we are leaving on the table, sometimes the private sector are not actively engaging in these kind of solutions, that is obviously a handicap on any kind of intervention we do in Ghana. But we have, again, these are solved problems in countries like Rwanda. You can have a health information exchange where everybody can plug in and we can see what is available everywhere. And it's again, a question of the choices we make. Right now, we're rolling out the Ghana Health Information Management System, GIMS. We are also including the Ghana Health Information Exchange. There are choices that we can make in the design phase now that make it so that private facilities can simply plug in and we can see what capacity they have and then aggregate all that to a higher level. So again, it's not a question of just doing a survey in public hospitals and kind of QRing the beds. That's a bit of a simplistic explanation of what's actually going to have to happen. What has to happen is that we have to know real-time capacity and be able to plug it into.
Thank you, Nana Kofi Kwache. Thank you very much, Nana Kofi Kwache. He's country director, Orum Institute, Ghana. And I wanted you to also share with us, Dr. Bonnie, briefly answer to us whether we can include the private hospitals in the systems that we are building, because without them, we probably will not be solving the problem.
Right, thank you very much. And I think my discussions with Nana Kofi over the years have been to how we use that information to be able to transfer into quality healthcare. And the exchange is one of the biggest areas, because this means that irrespective of which information system you have in your hospital, you will be able to route it through the exchange. And if the dialogue goes well, they will be able to tell you how many beds they have. But the reason why it becomes more crucial is what type of hospital is it? What kind of cases can they see? What is their capacity? In order for this to be beneficial, we would need to find a system of categorizing hospitals. In the US, in other places, they have the trauma level hospitals, so trauma 1, trauma 2, trauma 3, with the intent that if you can manage trauma or injury to some level, you should be able to manage the rest in that case. We don't have that luxury in our country. A hospital will be perfect at being able to deliver a pregnant woman, go through all of that, have even do cesarean
so classification is also very important.
Classification is one of the biggest things. And our bed management system and in the command center is not new. I visited the command center in Abu Dhabi last December. They have a system where you can see the number of beds, but it tells you which kind of patients. The minute you put in your patient categories, a lot of them disappear. A lot of
But we are told, as Professor Adeyo tells us, it's not just the number of beds, but what bed is available.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's not saying it's a stroke bed. It's meaning that area has the capacity to manage that particular patient. So this cannot be a wholesale approach and say we are moving X number of patients with various diseases. It will have to be individualized and managed actively.
Of course, we are told also
is going to be great, but the management of it will need to be very clinically focused.
As the two of you also emphasized, we're also told that even those who are manning the emergency vehicles, the ambulances, they can't give you the least emergency attention when there is a delay before they deliver you to a hospital. Suini, now let me come to you guys. We are being told
we will have to correct.
We're being told that. We're being told that. We're being told that. According to the opposition, that you are supposed to focus on Agenda 111 hospitals, so we can improve the numbers. That doesn't seem to be your interest.
Well, Samson, first of all, the Agenda 111 itself, we all know, was an afterthought. Because the NPP promised to complete districts without district hospitals. And on the basis of that and many other promises, they came into office and completely forgot to do anything about that until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, you remember, they started with 88 because we had increased the districts to about 88 without, district hospitals. And then somewhere along the line, it was as if I don't want to use the term, but there's this spirit, the gas spirit that they speak of, and it was now just being dashed and added on. It was as if, okay, but where's my share? Then they add on 111. So clearly, we are, as at this point, auditing it. And the evidence is mind-blowing. I mean, the last time His Excellency the President made a point about how much was disbursed to contractors, and yet there is nothing yet to show on the ground. We don't have a fully completed one that can even be utilized. And yet, when you match that against the releases that some of these contractors received, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So we cannot rush into completing it without actually investigating how the whole thing was procured and how much was paid. But I think finally the issue for me is not just about even, the beds and then the financials and then the matching of it. I think it's also, to a very large extent, attitudinal. And Samson, if you permit me, just a simple example that I'll give. One evening, my cousin called me from Tamale that they had rushed him to the hospital and then they were told that there was no bed. I called to speak to the person who was on duty. This person wouldn't speak to me. So I had to get in touch with the CEO, and the CEO
called and managed to get a bed. But guess what? He called me back to explain that the person was not willing to receive them because there is a protocol that when you are moving a patient from a referral, you must call the hospital before you make the referral. And that many of the hospitals don't call. And so when they don't call, they also don't receive them.
How much you punish the patient for that?
Exactly.
When lives are at
and
stake.
that was the question I was being asked. So should the patient suffer because the hospital that was referring him didn't call? And but for
they are auditing Agenda 111, and as we may find out, they are looking to perhaps build new ones. You, the politicians, sometimes it's difficult to understand you, and even the procurement process, like the toll booths like this, we are told for 9 months they are using competitive tendering. They are not getting to go through it. They will use sole source and will come here and say they've done the wrong thing. So instead of continuing what is already there.
So that was the issue I raised. What is in sole sourcing? That everyone wants to do it. You see, our problem is simple. We are not solving problems as politicians. We are not interested in solving. It's very sad. And it's because we do not have respect and value for human life. If we do, we attend to so many things differently. Look, you have come to meet Agenda 111. What the people want: good hospitals, good roads, good water supply, good electricity,
and cheap.
It doesn't matter who started it.
That's not the question.
And so if you are well-intentioned, should it matter that somebody started it? Look, just this week, something happened which I have applauded. And for me, is the height of, if you like, the evidence of continuity, what continuity can do for our country. President John Rawlings started talking about reparation, right? President John Kufuor added his voice. President John Mahama added his voice in his first term. President Akufo-Addo added his voice. President Mahama got a
Akufo-Addo actually elevated it, and we know that it is not their individual decision, but it was an Africa-wide union thing that it was entrusted on them.
Good. And President Mahama crowned it by getting a resolution. Beautiful. That is what continuity achieves. And so if we're to continue with whatever anybody starts, right?
This continuity, there's no procurement too.
That is the problem. But Samson, you see, this is where people get it wrong. You don't need procurement to develop a country. It's ideas. It's ideas. When you read Lee Kuan Yew's book, it's so beautiful. The biggest asset of Singapore, post-independent Singapore, was the military accoutrement of the British people. They kept threatening them that we're withdrawing it. Then the man started looking for ways to develop independent Singapore. And he made several interventions, like we are doing in Malaysia with Soluku, and people don't understand. These are development interventions that does not need big budgets, but will go a long way in turning around the economy. And so what I am saying is that, look, it shouldn't matter what somebody has started. Continue with it. You have come to meet Agenda 111. The other time on the floor of Parliament, a member of the NDC...
But if there are problems, we should audit and be sure that we are not continuing with the problems.
Samson, you are auditing. What are you looking for?
I got to know some of the people who got some of those contracts.
Samson, you are auditing to find out...
It should not be anywhere close to a contract.
You are auditing to find out suitability in terms of location. Suitability in terms of, if you like, pricing. But the pricing is contractual. So you cannot terminate it unless it is fraudulent. And so in the circumstance, what are you going to do? So if you say that, look, you've taken over liability, you've taken over assets, complete it and let's move on.
Okay. You just don't complete it. You need to investigate, analyze, and rationalize.
Please.
You can't
I just said it.
Yes,
yes. So that's what we're doing.
The heart of this problem is a comprehensive medical or health information system. Listen, as we speak, there are private hospitals, there are labs, there are government hospitals. There's too much focus on the government hospitals. If somebody has a crisis in Medina and you are thinking of bringing them to 37, they may die because of traffic. Meanwhile, before you get there, there are hospitals and airports, residential, all kinds of things. You are thinking private hospitals, they're expensive. That's not the issue. The issue is that today, if you Google restaurants near me, even fufu joints near me, you get it. My point is this. We actually started a $100 million project by LIMS. Okay? We've spent over $40 million. Some of these things, you build them over time. As we speak, they've taken it, thrown it out, and we're trying to start from scratch. If we have a health information system, the ambulance guy who picks somebody from Teshi and is thinking of Kolebu will know on the road which hospitals are there, and it is possible to know through this system which beds are available. And I agree that if you say that, if you put in the nature of the problem, it's a cardiac arrest, some of the beds will evaporate. But if it's an emergency, what you need to do is stabilize the patient.
Thank you.
So basically, all these things we are talking about, I don't have to, I would have told you about how much money we spend and why this is not a problem. And as I speak, what I'm talking about may look exotic, but we have all the things in place to do it. Doc, what we need is a comprehensive...
And we keep duplicating and just wasting money, as you said. Yes, Sule.
Please, let's go back.
Yes. Wait, Sule. Hold on, Sule.
You've raised some points about...
Sule, give me a minute.
No,
Sule, yes.
Yes, Samson, I think that we are talking about a very broad systemic issue.
Yes.
The question to ask is it a case that we have beds, but sometimes because the beds are not managed, we don't know where a bed is? There was a time the whole of the northern region, the 5 northern regions, no MRI, no CT scan. So if we are saying that we have a system that would say, oh, there is a hospital in Walawale, or there's a hospital in Zuarungu, and so on and so forth, you take the person there. It's not about the physical bed. It's not as if, the person needs a bed to lie on. And therefore, if you identify where there is a bed, the problem is solved. I think that we have to deal with the systemic issue about investing significantly within our health sector, because even some of the big ones that you see, and Kofi, by the way, look, my former colleague, Muhib Said, who passed exactly a year tomorrow.
Right.
You know, when he, had the crisis and was at a hospital, I had to call a friend in South Africa, a medical doctor friend who is a Ghanaian in South Africa, to try and get me a place where we can take him to. Eventually, when he got a place and called me and said, oh, these people said they have an emergency, whatever place that you can bring him. We called the people, they said, okay, the deposit is 50,000 and our daily rate, the ward rate is about 8,000.
This is in South Africa?
No, Ghana.
Ghana?
Yes.
Okay.
But the solution is inherent.
So we want to be sure that you can pay before you bring the person. And this was a person in crisis. Yes. Eventually we lost.
And that's a private institution. That's part of the issue. Yes, Dr. Bonnie, quickly.
We've raised a couple of issues that I would like to clarify.
We have just 30 seconds.
Yes. The first one is the staffing. We have about 100 emergency physicians scattered across the country. We would admit the population density will be in the urban area since they are training institutions. You still need to train. But you do not need an emergency medicine specialist to get emergency care.
Yes.
And that is where we have made the errors along the path. Are we ensuring that people have been trained? Are we ensuring that through medical school, we have emergency medicine as part of the training? Are we ensuring that when people come out of medical school, they get the ability to get trained? Because see, it is a systemic issue. If we always conclude that the healthcare worker, who is at the tail end of everything, because he's the only one that is interfacing with a patient, that becomes a big burden to the health worker, which is unfair. Just as I heard a comment saying that the ambulance staff might not be well trained.
We need to get to this issue in a more comprehensive manner.
It's a system that is not
and my guest, as you are listening now, is Dr. Joseph Bonnie. We had Nana Kofi Kwachi. We also earlier had Kobna Atabedu. Alhassan S. Suhini is MP for Tamale North. Nana J. Bafor Ewa is MP for Mensha South. Kofi Bento is MP for the streets. He's a rebel lawyer and senior vice president of Humani Africa. Suleimana Brahima is MP for the Fourth Estates. And making sure that people are sweating on the facts. He's the executive director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. Have a good afternoon.
Just
Samson, Lardy, Anyenini.
Those going to quote
When you are done with Quo on Sunday, the little money left in your pocket, please come and spend it in Menchia South on Easter Monday for me.
Thank you. So local festival. I'm also going for the e-waste awareness creation with the Archdiocese of Accra. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us.